In the letter, special appearance by Kit Lee.
They're live. I did.
Okay, we're live. We're gonna. Okay, good morning. I'd like to call this meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Park Commissioners to order. I want to thank those who are here today for braving a very cold morning and joining us here in Eden Park. And for those of you at home watching us, it's still a beautiful day to be in a Cincinnati park. So welcome to our meeting. We're going to start, as we always do, with public comments, and our first speaker will be Rachel Wells. Rachel, welcome back, and you've got the pleasure of 2 minutes of the floor. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
On March 2nd, 2022, my building neighbors and I shared with Cincinnati Parks our first collective letter opposing the proposed Burnett Woods Dog Park, which is adjacent to our homes, and highlighted our concerns about lack of engagement to date. In response, we were told by then interim director Nyer that more engagement opportunities would be presented in the future. 2 years later, we're still waiting for those opportunities. The engagement on this project has been so poor, the park's only effort to even inform Burnett Woods neighbors or the vast majority of the park's stakeholders about the proposal occurred via signs in the park placed on December 1st, 2023 and related social media posts. These directed park users to a survey that failed to ask the most important question. Do stakeholders want a dog park in Burnett Woods? Even so, the opposition to this project is so strong that, according to an Enquirer reporter, 85% of responses to the supposed survey criticized the project. The survey yielded only 140 positive responses. This is a marked decline in support for the idea of a dog park serving Hilton since the Denora Park proposal in 2021. A survey for the Denora Park proposal yielded 440 responses that somewhat or strongly supported a dog park in Denora Park. The majority of residents favored or responded favored the Denora Park project, but the proposal failed and many cited the immediate neighbors' opposition. So why now is the Burnett Woods proposal charging forward when even more neighbors have expressed concern? When multiple community councils and 6 environmental groups have shared their opposition? When survey results show overwhelming opposition? When there are 2 petitions against this project, each with more than 1,500 signatures? When immediate neighbors who, living in multifamily housing, rely entirely on parks for our green space, have organized and submitted at least 3 group letters and numerous personal appeals against this project? The contrast of engagement efforts and disparate treatment between the failed Denora Park proposal and this Burnett Woods proposals is stark and profound.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for coming out on a cold day. We appreciate your comments. We have Sherry Frost. Welcome back, Sherry.
I'm also here in opposition to the Burnett Woods Dog Park. My friend Carter Miller passed last weekend because she was so passionate about protecting the park that she loved. Many people use our parks for maintaining mental wellness and mental balance. She was one of those people. So I'm here in honor of her today to reiterate that she started a petition that garnered more than 1,500 signatures before her passing. She brought me into this opposition fight. She brought so many friends in to try to protect the park that she loves. And I don't know, maybe you didn't grow up in Cincinnati, you don't realize how important Burnett Woods is to the community, but it's a really magical place. And we've tried so hard to reach your hearts to say, maybe this isn't the right location. Maybe we can talk about moving it to a more agreeable location that doesn't insult all of the stakeholders in the park. So please think of another location and respect the wishes of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And we're very sorry for the loss of your friend and appreciate you also coming out this morning and expressing your comments. So thank you. Okay, we'll move into our agenda today. And first item that we have is an action item. We have our minutes from the December 14th meeting. I assume we have had an opportunity to review. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
And second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you for wonderful minutes, Kelly, if those are your responsibilities. Next, we have a police report. We have Sergeant Tim Epstein. Thank you.
Got some wood here.
Yeah, we'll take them.
You're fine. Well, good morning. I'm Mandy Barker. I'm the Pivot Crime Analyst today. I'm going to be providing some updates on the activity that's been going on in the parks during quarter 4.
And Mandy, you said it's Mandy Marker, is it? Marker, just for the minutes.
B.
Barker,
Yes.
gotcha. Okay, excellent. That's why I was clarifying. So we have it right in the minutes.
All righty, let's go ahead and get started. So the great news is quarter 4 was pretty quiet, and that's typical, actually, what we see historically in 2022, 2021, and so on and so forth, that during the winter months, we do see much quieter, much less activity in all of our parks. We did see a decline citywide of our calls for service, about 15% relative to quarter 3 of 2023. We saw a decline of 37%. This is relatively typical. When we go to our calls for service for top 10, we see ranking in our top 2 is going to be a waterfront park and Washington Park. But again, even though these are ranking in the top 2, these are still very, very low numbers. So this is really good news. So I just have here some of the things that we saw in the quarter before that. We saw that Smale Riverfront did rise up and there was a huge spike, but as I suspected, we were going to see that decline. And actually it went so far as to be demoted to number 7 for our top 10 calls for service for parks. So again, this is good news. I'm going to keep reiterating this is good news. Here. So what we did see move into our top 10 calls for service parks, we saw Lincoln Park and Burnett Woods Park move into our top 10. But when we get there, Burnett Woods ranked at number 8, Lincoln Park at number 10. And we really didn't see much of any negative differences occurring here. We did see Ziegler Playground and Mount Echo move out of our top 10. And again, as I said, Smale Riverfront, which was at number 2 during quarter 3, was demoted to number 7 during quarter 4. We did see Fountain Square move from number 3 to number 5 relative to quarter 3. We did see Washington Park move up ever so slightly. But again, the numbers are looking really good here. So what we do see here is when we think about our types of calls for service in quarter 4, 911 calls yet again did rank in the number 1 type of call for service across our parks. So that's something to be mindful of. I do want to iterate that we did see a 16% increase citywide in our calls for service across the board. So this is just across the city. We did see a slight uptick in calls for service. This can be due to a variety of things. Oftentimes we have a lot of really great years and we have a year that kind of fluctuates. And this isn't too much cause for concern because we still did see that 37% decrease in our calls for service in parks relative to quarter 3. So even though we did see some increases relative to 2022 as a year, it's really not too much of an increase that should alarm anyone. When we get over to offenses and directed patrols, we do see relative to 2022, we saw a reduction in offenses of about 27%. We did see an increase in our directed patrols, but when we get into talking about quarter 3 relative to quarter 4, we did see not only a reduction in offenses by 40% or almost 41%, but we saw a reduction in directed patrols of about 48%. Again, this is because quarter 4 historically it's just going to be a much quieter quarter, and I do suspect the same thing for quarter 1. And we will start to see those spikes again quarter 2 and quarter 3. And that's all I have for us.
Thank you. So on a quarterly basis, when we look at types of offenses, so there's 13 for the quarter. So we're talking about 4 calls per month, basically, for parks. As you step back and as you looked at this data, what are the biggest, I see the categories here, criminal, damaging, assault, but what does that mean at parks? What is the main thing that you're hearing or?
Is actually going to be pretty accurate. It's really that criminal damaging and endangering. As I've looked historically, that still ranks very, very highly outside of assault. So this does seem to be a tracking trend, but we do see declines, even though they are still ranking in the top type of offense, we are seeing less and less of those.
And criminal damaging, I assume that's like breaking into a car.
Essentially, but I would like to defer to,
No, it's
Correct.
criminal, it can be something like damaging your property, painting a fence, graffiti, things like that would be criminal.
Oh,
Okay.
did you just say graffiti?
Graffiti, yeah.
Interesting.
And where would breaking into a car show up on this category? I'm sorry, theft from auto? Okay.
Theft.
Would it be theft? So that theft from auto is.
it would be theft from auto.
So that's not even on our list.
Correct.
Wow. Super.
People learn not to leave their purse in the car.
Exactly, especially if you're not walking in trails, right? Any other questions?
It's great. The cold weather's paying off. Yeah.
This is very good data, the way you presented it. It
Mhm.
helps us understand, and I really appreciate the analysis that you've done for us. It's more than just numbers. It's a little bit more content to it, so thank you.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do.
I just want to ask, are the number of police increasing?
Now, we've lost, police, we're below our jobs.
That's a concern.
Do you get much community volunteering or help? Just kind of, something that just citizens that really love parks and, maybe report things or just say, hey, I want to help patrol in some form or fashion?
We do have a Citizens on Patrol program. It's not really based on the parks.
Okay.
So it's based on neighborhoods.
Gotcha.
You have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out this morning.
Thank you.
Colleagues, we're going to make a little change. We're going to ask Derek to come up next and present his HR update.
Derek's report is on page, or his memo is on page 86. 86.
86. Wow, we're really moving. You're moving on up there from 86.
Go all his hogs off the page numbers early. Not even in here to listen to my joke.
Good morning, Derek.
Nice to see you this morning.
You also.
I have a couple of key updates. Currently, we have a total of 151 full-time employees, 76 part-time employees. We have some appointments. We have Kate Lawrence, Jason's new executive assistant. Dale Embry, he is moving from municipal worker to laborer, so he's one of those part-time employees that's now moving into full-time. Kelly Wanstraff, she is a florist that's going to be working at Water Nursery. Really happy to have her. She has a lot of years of experience and teaches horticulture at Cincinnati State. Jonathan Tagg, he's our new audiovisual person at Waterfront. Will be helping with a lot of those large events and ensuring that the audio systems are working correctly. And then we have Mark Hand, a tree maintenance worker. We're still working to get more tree workers out there, and we have some classification work being done currently. And, that's kind of a long process, but we are moving forward. Right now, we have a lot of interviews going on. We got the grant writer, which is critical, office manager that will be here in admin, project manager that will also be here in admin, and we have an office manager and project manager that will be at planning and design. We also have a computer systems analyst that we are about to start interviewing for planning and design as well. Currently,
And the CFO interviews are ongoing.
CFOs are ongoing, as you know. And we're alive with part-time postings. We have 5 part-time positions. We had around 9 part-time postings. We've consolidated to 4. One, to just give people a centralized location to apply, and also to make it easier to market the positions, CEB team. And in total, we have about 106 applications, and we just posted it on the 10th. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And overall, even with those administrative specialist positions, we had over 638 applications. We're doing something right. We're getting a lot of applicants.
Super.
Overall, we're hovering around at 22, 23 vacancies. But once we fill those administrative specialists, which are 6 positions, that will including that computer systems analyst position, that's going to drop down a lot. Also, we have a florist exam that we're going to give that will take up 3 vacancies that we currently have. Those will be filled really quickly because it's just off an eligibility list. And Yeah, the service area coordinator, we're working on that classification as well. Should move relatively quickly. So a lot of our positions aren't positions that will be open for too long. Once we get over the initial hurdles of just civil service, classification review and those type of things. Are there any questions for me?
Derek, we say it every meeting, I think, but kudos to you and your staff. You're doing a great work in getting us up to speed. I know everybody in this room is welcoming Kate. Thank you for being here and glad to have you aboard. I know this guy over here is really happy to have you aboard as we are as well. So Derek, any questions for Derek or?
Talk to me about the parks, recreation specialist, events, audio, visual. Why is that part-time?
Well, we have recreation specialists that serve in many capacities. And they're all part-time. It's a recreation specialist position, but they're going to be working. They're going to be helping loading, and they're doing a lot of the physical labor to assist in event setup and audio systems.
So we've recently made a shift where we've added the full-time person, and Jonathan Tagg was the one that got that full-time position. So he's now year-round. And then this has just traditionally been a part-time job because it's 4 events, which typically happen just through 8 or 9 months of the year. And so we've always just gotten part-time people to do those jobs. And then they often will stick with us. But there's obviously a ramp up in the amount of hours they do in the summertime.
Okay. Sort of
They're
understand.
very skilled though, very skilled.
So in a way, it's like not necessarily a seasonal position.
It is
Yeah.
part-time essentially.
Gotcha.
The way seasonal or part-time works at the city is that you can work a maximum of 1,400 hours. So you can do that any way you want to. You can work in it, 0 hours for 6 months and then cram all that into 6 months. Or you can spread that out and work, whatever 1,400 divided by 52 is throughout the entire year. So we have some seasonal folks that are with us for multiple years in a row, and they just never hit that 1,400 threshold. So they never have to leave service.
Gotcha.
And okay, now I got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Derek.
No problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we've got the state of the urban forest. And if I'm cold,
Yeah.
I think it's a little chilly.
Could you hit the heat?
Thank you, Rocky.
The windows are beautiful in here, but on a day like today, they are a little bit of a trap.
It's too hot.
We'll raise our hand and
Just let me know.
Oh, I feel that.
So this is on page 21 for anybody that is curious. Well, the presentation isn't, but the memo is so.
Sweet. So thank you all very much for having me. It's been a minute since I've given you an update on urban forestry initiatives. So I figured I would take this time as we're also working through the urban forestry assessment to just kind of give an overview of the program, some of our accomplishments from this year and some things that are up and coming, pretty excited about. So just overall, the function of the urban forestry program for the city is that we essentially serve as the kind of municipal specialist, I would say, for our board culture. So we have dedicated staff that provide 24/7 emergency management for when trees come down. We manage the 6-year preventative maintenance cycle where every tree in the city is touched at least once every 6 years. And we do long-term planning reforestation initiatives with the city and community partners. In addition to that, every 10 years, we do our UTC, our urban tree canopy assessment, which is used for planning purposes as well. We work with all city departments for urban forestry planning, as well as community leaders, community councils, business districts, as well as nationwide urban forestry programs. Some of the innovative work that we've been doing, we're working on some research projects with university partners. In the past, we've piloted soil cells, which is a new kind of way of doing streetscape development. And of course, biochar, carbon offset, and then integrating our entire operation into GIS over the past few years. So our staff makeup is essentially 1 urban forestry supervisor. Our city is broken into 4 districts. Those are managed by urban forestry specialists. So they manage the contracts within their particular neck of the woods, as well as any kind of new developments that are coming through. They're kind of guiding that process. All these team members are on call 24/7, as well as our 2 urban forestry technicians. Those positions have been vacant for the past year as we await the oncoming arborist series that we've been working on through Central HR. And then GIS analyst, Matt DeBona, he still is managing our urban forestry assessment data. He manages the UTC, and he is constantly helping us build maps specific to community needs as we're doing presentations. And then up and coming for fiscal year 25, again, working through the classification development, we'll have an in-house tree crew. So we're working to get equipment in place now and then get those positions in place in order to start hiring by the time fiscal year 25 rolls around.
You know, can we ask questions?
Yes, sir.
So if you go back, what's a day in the life of a urban forestry specialist look like? I know it probably depends on the weather and what has happened the night before, but what is it that they do?
A little bit of everything. So, for example, we have a direct line to our office. So when folks call in, they either want a tree or they have a tree pruning issue or they see a hazard. So they're constantly out doing inspections that people are calling in or whatever comes in through the 311 system. When big storms come in, we're all hands on deck cleaning that up. But really it's a lot of contract management. So the preventative maintenance cycle, as I said, it's broken into 6 districts. So for example, the Northeast section was done this past year. So Kirk Kastner, as the North District Forester, was managing every day through that contract with the contractor that was there pruning. And then each one of them have a special task that they also do. So Kurt manages all of our utility pruning. So anytime that Duke is coming into town, he runs the line with them, reiterates the standards, makes sure that the crew follows up. And then if there's any damage done, they're essentially charged for that. Marianne is our East District Forester. She oversees our planting contract citywide. So she's the one that's putting together all of the bid tabulations for that contract, as well as managing that contract every single year, both seasons, so spring and fall. And then Matt Dickman is our West District Forester. He works closely with DOTE for any kind of new streetscape, whenever they do the streetscape repavements, utility lines coming in. So he focuses on underground infrastructure and surface infrastructure. And then he kind of manages that for all the districts. And then Doug Frisch, he's our newest forester. He's in the South District. So the South District is a unique beast because it's downtown, it's uptown, it's UC. So it's just a very demanding, it's also the streetcar. So it's just a very demanding district overall. So he focuses intently on, kind of keeping 3CDC happy and keeping the downtown shining. So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, sounds like it.
It's a big job. So we have roughly 80,000 street trees along 2,000 miles of public right of way. So that also includes paper streets. Urban forestry is guided by the Cincinnati Municipal Code 743, which has all of our tree protection language, permitting, our Urban Forestry Advisory Board. Everything is kind of based off of that regulation. And then our funding mechanism is guided by the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 727. So that kind of guides how the urban forestry assessment goes through the process every year. And so to develop our budget each year, we essentially determine what our operating budget is going to be. And then we use the front footage method. So we take essentially our operating budget and then divide that by the amount of feet that abut the right of way from properties. And then that gives us our percentage for that front footage fee. And with this, every property owner, public, private, nonprofit, and city pay into the urban forestry assessment. So just a comparative analysis across other cities, the urban forestry assessment is very unique to Ohio. We're, kind of revered at a national level to have such an awesome, mechanism to fund our program. But you can see just based on some of the other cities in the state, we're in that upper tier, but we also have equal amount of trees and some of the highest canopy, definitely. So just a quick snapshot of how we do the urban forestry assessment. Matt DeBona created this GIS-based analysis. So essentially every single parcel has a line drawn around it. And then he's able to quickly run the assessment, unlike back in the day when they were using spreadsheets and plat maps.
Pencils and erasers, I remember, yeah.
So just kind of a snapshot of the assessment process. I figured this would be good, given that we have some new commissioners. So again, the budget determination is presented to the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. It's brought to the Park Board, and then it goes to council. So that sets the determination of need, which allows us to begin public engagement. If we have an objection to our assessment, then we form an equalization board that'll also come back before you. So through that objection process, equalization board determines, how they want to handle whatever objections we have. That's then presented to council for a determination to proceed ordinance. And then finally levying, and then the actual assessment is sent to the auditor in September and then billed for January the next year. So that's essentially paying for it's securing funds for the fiscal year in advance. So for this assessment year, the budget that'll be presented is for fiscal year 26. So one of the cool things that we have done is taken our urban tree canopy assessment and essentially ran it through, or actually this is our tree inventory, ran it through iTree to show what the return on investment is for the trees that we are managing. And overall, each year they're providing $38 million of real infrastructure kind of capital offsets, both through carbon sequestration, stormwater mitigation, air quality improvements. So a great tool for us to use to justify the need for the program. And again, just a snapshot of the benefits overall. This is kind of my go-to slide whenever I'm talking trees, but essentially they solve all the problems. So just a snapshot and review of 23. We had 1,900 trees planted essentially. 757 of those were citywide contractual. We did have a snafu this past year with our planting contractor, essentially went MIA in May. And so then we had to put it back out to bid, which was a long process, and kind of recoup that loss from that. But had 1,000 relief trees given away, and we did 200 trees were planted during 3 community events, largely funded by the foundation and Mad Tree in low canopy neighborhoods. So those were in Roselawn, Bond Hill, and Roselawn and Bond Hill.
Crystal, how does that 1973 compare to last year?
Typically, we're at about 1,000 to 1,500 contractually planted trees. So
First line item, 757.
Yeah. So we definitely took a hit from that planting contract, kind of hitting a snafu there. So that's our goal each year, is at least 1,000 to 1,500.
So as we are looking at performance management
Correct.
criteria, this would be a key.
This will be a metric that we'll be measuring continually, and our effort is to grow that. Last year we just had, and this can happen in the future too, we just had a bad tree contractor, and you get one. We've been talking to the city purchasing department about coming up with ways to have multiple tree contractors. Unfortunately, the city purchasing sees tree contracting or tree planting much more like a construction project where you go and you get a vendor, and then that vendor is the lowest and best, rather than a service or a professional service where you can have multiple vendors. And so we've been trying to talk through with them, changing either the code or the city rules, like the administrative code or the ordinances, in order to allow tree planting, which we see as professional service. Basically, however they want to define it, we just want to make it so we can be more efficient at it. So sometimes one of the challenges we have is getting a tree company that's big enough to do all of the work we have, which doesn't allow us to be quite as nimble. So it's something that I'm learning from Crystal and trying to dig into, and then trying to help navigate that piece at the city. What we saw this year is when you only have one contractor, and then we still don't know the full details of why they went MIA, but they stopped planting trees and stopped responding to us and stopped being as, they got us to 757 trees instead of 1,500. And so we're trying to look at ways to fix that in the future. But it is one of our performance management agreements numbers that we track. And so we'll be able to have that data. So when we're talking to procurement, we can look at the data and say, we had a down year and here's why. Here's our solution to fix it. And so hopefully that will help us make moves.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Citywide contracts make it really hard for small businesses to bid on them. So
Sure.
that's what we're trying to do, is break it up.
Great.
We'd rather have like 6 small to medium sized businesses and maybe a big business in there too, rather than have to rely on one big business that we're solely reliant upon.
So aside from that, we had over 7,000 trees were pruned, About 7,000 of those were during the preventative maintenance cycle in the Northeast District. And then we had 347 trees that were removed and 1,300 stumps that were ground out. Some of the awards that we got this year, we were noted as a National Vanguard City through the Trust for Public Lands and also Tree City USA for our 43rd year.
The Vanguard City Award is right between Jim and Molly behind us on the shelf. That big, yep, exactly.
So cutting board.
We're looking into getting, we have that like brochure cabinet out there that's kind of behind our tree sign, but who gets brochures anymore, right? Everything's on the internet or on your phone. So we're talking about this year, perhaps getting a awards cabinet built and then starting to dust off some more of the awards that are in cabinets elsewhere, but getting the team fired up to have awards and have them on display. So.
But with this team, you better make it a big cabinet.
So just a quick overview. So the urban tree canopy analysis is the tool that we use to kind of guide our planting. And this is a major tool that I use to communicate to different neighborhood organizations or community groups that are seeking guidance on where and when to plant and why. And so essentially, this is a snapshot of the tree canopy citywide. We're at 43% now. The goal for the city was 40. So we hit that mark. But what we found is that we have been seeing canopy loss in very specific areas. Some of these are also low-income communities of color. So looking at working with the city more closely on policy regulations that we can create or enforce better. The planning department has recently reached out to us, kind of seeking guidance on some policy development that they're working on for development goals.
So this is a great use of technology. I mean, this is well beyond where we used to be. So it's a great tool.
Absolutely.
One of the things I've been fascinated to learn through this is that there's a lot of costs that are associated with tree, right? So the way the code's written out, similar to the fact that you're in charge of your sidewalk, even though it's kind of a public space. A tree can bring costs, whether it is the berries or the seeds or whatever that falls off of it, or whether it's just the maintenance and so sometimes what I've heard about is there are in these low income neighborhoods, there sometimes people don't want a tree and they'd rather not have the responsibility of it because they're worried about that future implication. So I think that's where working with city council and with the administration, we can come up with some policy solutions that might help encourage that. City council is also very interested. They've been trying very hard to figure out ways to use our urban forestry dollars to plant trees, not just in the right of way, which unfortunately we can't do, but we're working with them. They're very interested in trying to find ways to just plant more trees in general. Crystal's done a great job of liaisoning with the city council members and getting them additionally fired up about this.
That's a great problem to have.
Exactly.
Being encouraged to plant more trees, which is great.
Times are changing.
Yes.
But with that, we also know that we have a lot of opportunity for tree planting. So this kind of shows, based on the UTC, where we have plantability throughout our community at the census block level. And so with that, when we start to overlay some of the aspects, like where do we have tree canopy, where do we have high heat island, where do we have high runoff, where we're seeing flooding, where is air pollution the worst? And then overlaying that with population dynamics, where we have low income communities of color, people that are commuting by bus, anything that we're getting from the census data or the American survey that's done every year. We can overlay that with canopy to kind of guide where our efforts would be best spent to have the greatest impact for our community as a whole.
Mr. What is that area that looks like? One before that one as well. Looks like it's along the Little Miami River or something, but it's along next one back.
Is Linwood?
That one.
That's essentially the airport, which shows up as plantable space, but is not.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. So essentially, the way that the UTC works, it's a land cover classification.
Okay.
So wherever they have grass or open fields, it's identified as plantable space.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And so when we overlay various community demographics with tree canopy, we essentially have a roadmap showing us where we need to plant based on specific issues, which also opens us up for great grant opportunities that may not have been traditionally sought after. Like we're looking at health and kind of economic development, those sorts of things. And so we're all weighted, and that's what gives us kind of our holistic planting plan. So every census block, census tract has a certain number of trees that's allocated to it that has set our goals for these particular areas. And so we put this into a public facing map, and I can definitely send that to you guys later. But essentially, if you click on a neighborhood, it'll show you exactly where what the tree planting goal is for that area. If you click on it, it gives you all the census data and all the environmental data. And then it's also integrated with our tree inventory, which is it's essentially live streamed through that. So as we're adding information or saying these specific areas are planned for planting, community members can look to that map, and I can use that map publicly to say, this is what our planting plan is for this upcoming year. Or this is where we're seeking planting. So that's where we start to do more community engagement directly with the residents there to create that buy-in before we come.
You have that proposal?
I'm sorry?
You have that proposal?
Yeah. You mean as far as what the,
This data is great, but what is the result? What is the plan?
so essentially targeting, I don't have that specific, I can pull that map up if you would like to see it. But essentially it's targeting, and I'll get into it here in just a minute. I will definitely touch base on that.
So along that same line, so my question was about the same.
Mhm.
Who specifically, how are we implementing, addressing these facts?
I got you.
Okay,
I'll get to you.
okay.
The data first and then implement. So as far as a breakdown on where our trees currently exist, you can see a large portion of them are publicly owned. So this is publicly owned property. So this is park property as well as street trees, as well as all the other publicly owned property. But you can see the majority of our canopy is on private residential. So that's where it really comes into play of doing community engagement and education and finding innovative solutions for policy development that help people either maintain trees or encourage them to retain them on property.
I can't read the fine print, but where does CPS fall in there?
CPS is also in publicly owned. Right of way is all the way to the right. So that's everything that's urban forestry managed.
Okay.
Publicly owned is all the public spaces.
So yeah, so just since it is tiny, it's right of way, residential is pink, publicly owned is green, public utilities is that tiny blue.
Yep.
Other, and then industrial is the other gray, commercial is the red, and then agricultural on the far left.
Okay.
Yellow.
Thank you.
So this kind of gets to some of the challenges that were noted before. We're seeing canopy loss through development and construction projects, as well as a lot of issues with sidewalk conflicts. So that's where we're looking to work more with DOTE, some of the capital infrastructure that's coming in to find innovative solutions to streetscape design that allows for trees to grow well. We have some, like Jason said, some residents just don't want trees. And a lot of that does happen within our low income communities of color. I mean, a history of disenfranchisement, the inability to maintain trees on property relates to tree failure, which then creates this negative feedback loop of if a tree is here, it could be potentially dangerous. So those are some of the aspects that we're trying to work through as we continue with the community engagement around these pieces.
And in a lot of those neighborhoods too, the homeownership rate's lower too, which means that it might be a commercial owner or some sort of other landlord that is not interested in additional liability or addition. So those are opportunities for us to come up with ways to encourage that.
Yeah. And then we continue through risk management as we're identifying trees that are potentially hazardous. We have a very, I'd say, low threshold for hazard in the city, having had trees fail. So we are on every year, we do a risk management cycle. So every single street that is a major thoroughfare is reviewed for risk and hazard. And then, you know, just the effects of climate change is what we're seeing. So we're starting to kind of change the way that we do our planting plans to better reflect the changing climate that we're anticipating to come. And so how do we roll it out? So essentially the way that we've been doing, what's the plan? So it's easy for us to go in. So we're doing the citywide tree planting. That is very much, you know, individually led. So if you want a tree in front of your house, you call up urban forestry puts it on the contract, it's planted. But to really affect change in these communities, we have to do larger tree plantings. And the majority of our low canopy areas are also, again, low income communities of color. So again, not to be big brother to just come in and slam a bunch of trees in and say, here you go, hope they grow. We're working with partners like Groundwork Ohio River Valley and Green Umbrella to do the Climate Safe Neighborhoods Initiative. So which is essentially a climate advisory group is formed. It's made up of community members directly involved and already engaged within that particular neighborhood. And with that, there's a 6-week process where I'm pretty much at most of these meetings, kind of, because trees kind of integrate into what are the problems where we don't have canopy. What does that relate to? What are the solutions? Increased tree canopy can solve these particular issues. But it's also looking beyond that for streetscape improvements that improve the safety, walkability of the communities, as well as various air quality, or basically it's a full climate resiliency plan comes out of this. So what's been done so far? So we have Lower Price Hill. We did a mass tree planting there a couple of years ago and are still working with that climate advisory group, working directly with community groups, actually property owners adjacent to the trees to help water the trees and kind of build that kind of community buy-in long-term. Beekman Corridor was done last year, it has a climate safe neighborhood. So that's about 5 different neighborhoods along the Mill Creek. And so with that, there's not a lot of right-of-way plantable space, but working with the Green Umbrella through the Green Schoolyards Initiative, looking at different CPS properties or CRC properties or vacant lands in those areas to do more innovative solutions like microforest or educational forest on school grounds. And then Roselawn and Bond Hill were done 2 years ago. And so essentially the way that this is working out is once we have that community engagement plan created, we then work with that advisory group beyond that and the community council and the business districts to go in and identify where do we want to focus our attention first. So these plans essentially are giving us an idea of where the community has identified the hottest areas in their neighborhood, where they want to see improvements made, and then work directly with them and groundwork and our partners like MadTree and the Cincinnati Parks Foundation to go in and do mass tree plantings, followed by community engagement, education, workforce development in those particular neck of the woods. So this year we did a lot of implementation in Roselawn and Bond Hill since these plans came out last year. So we had 150 trees that were planted in the fall by the MadTree All Hands event. So that focused around the Bond Hill recreation area and the Bond Hill playground as well, but the majority of those were streetscape. This is essentially wasn't my favorite way to do tree planting in that, you know, it's 150 volunteers that descend upon a neighborhood and plant them out versus like doing real tight community engagement and working with having a volunteer planting that's, you know, led, hosted, and, you know, kind of implemented by the community members themselves. That's the direction that we would like to get to. But either way, we have MadTree All Hands every year. So this is one of the easiest ways to put 150 people to work. So again, working with Groundwork Ohio River Valley, as the climate safe neighborhood plans are rolled out, there is a community, there's a paid position that's held at Groundwork where like a community activist, community coordinator that stays in that neighborhood to continue working with the beautification committee and the community council to continue implementation. Trees are the easiest thing to implement first and foremost, because if there's plantable space, we can go in and plant versus like streetscape development and, you know, safe streets, safe walks to schools, that takes years of planning through DOTE. But by having the plan in place and working directly with them, we're able to kind of guide these new developments in a way that, you know, kind of enhances tree canopy over time. And so just some exciting projects in the pipeline. So again, this year was our first year that the urban forestry assessment at 31 sits hit our budget. So right now we're working to, again, create that in-house tree crew and getting equipment for them to get going. We're working with, there's been a lot of IRA funding that's been coming out through the USDA and now at the state level, DNR, Ohio Division of Natural Resources. So a lot of our partners are applying for and getting large grants. And again, with Groundwork Ohio River Valley, we're looking to essentially expand upon our workforce development program, where for the past few years, we've been focused really in on forest restoration, trail restoration, like small projects within parks. Our vision for kind of this next chapter is to develop a young adult workforce that's specific to urban forestry management. So essentially training up our next generation of arborists within the communities, serving within those communities, and ideally keeping the money within that community. So, and it's been pretty successful. Tanner and his group have been getting, I mean, I think there's a $12 million grant that they're in for right now that would essentially potentially fund that program for at least the next five years or so. And then, of course, the Cincinnati Biochar Project, which you guys will hear a lot more about. I just kind of used some slides from the last time that I presented on this. So again, this grant came to us in 21. And we're essentially have been working through the process. So if you don't know much about biochar, biochar is essentially created from wood waste through a pyrolysis unit that's then turned into a charcoal-like substance. And then that's used and mixed with organic matter. In our partnership with Great Parks of Hamilton County, we'll be using manure from Parkey's Farm to do so. And then we'll be selling a portion of it to pay for the operation and then using whatever we create in all of our tree plantings moving forward. As well as looking to some of the carbon negative technology opportunities through the IRA. We have a return on investment of up to 40% of the cost of the project. So, and then that plan is to essentially take the spent heat off of the pyrolysis unit that will then be fed into a boiler. That boiler system will then be fed into water greenhouses to heat the greenhouse. So essentially offsetting $40,000 worth of energy costs for that building each year. And would then so that's essentially your winter months. But then the rest of the year, it would be spinning a turbine in what they call an ORC, as electricity generation. So with that would be able to source like on site, all the energy needed for that site, as well as potentially feedback to the grid. So
Really exciting.
Yeah.
some next level stuff, man. So, and so just again, some of the potential partnerships and some of the benefits of that, of how we're going to utilize it. And then kind of a timeline on what that's looking like now. So for the past year, we've gone through the pyrolysis equipment procurement process and pretty much have that down to a final product ready to present to you all next month. We've been working with Joel and his team on site development plans, and they've been, just killing it, getting RFPs out for the mechanical engineering to tie all that in and make it all happen. As well as just, sitting down and doing the raw work of drawing out the CAD drawing of exactly where each element goes and how it lays out. So from that, we'll be bringing that project to you in full force, from my understanding, within the next month. And then, essentially from February to April, we'll be finalizing kind of that site design plan and then issuing RFPs for construction, ideally doing construction and having the project up and running by the end of the year is the goal. And that's all I got.
Okay, simple question.
Yes, ma'am.
The assessment rate,
Yes, ma'am.
what you're asking for, is it an increase or is it the same?
It's the same. It's
It
the
is
same
the
as it
same.
has been for the past couple years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Question.
How do I get access to this, or all of us, some presentation?
Oh, I can definitely share it with you.
We'll send it out to everybody. Crystal was finalizing it and we just got it to Kelly this morning, but it'll be in the packet that's online. We'll update the packet to include it for historical sense, and then we'll send it out to you.
Yeah, this is beautiful to me. I love color. I feel like this community and folks and see this, they're like, wow, this is great.
Yes. And that's the thing too. I think this past year, we probably presented, I want to say, to at least 8 different communities, 8 different neighborhoods, similar data. Yeah. And I'll also, in that, I can include the link to that public facing map where you can kind of click and play and kind of see how it all integrates.
Great, Crystal. 2 questions. Back to the first one, which is, when do you have the planning plan for the neighborhoods based on all that data?
So essentially it's boots on the ground. So our inventory, every potential tree planting site has already been inventoried as vacant, right? And it has a species associated with it. So depending on so at that point, we essentially have a planting plan for any of the available space in the city. Then we strategically kind of play it out to where, so for example, with Bond Hill, we were able to put 150 trees in that one area. So that makes for a really good community-based kind of tree planting versus doing it through contract where you have like onesie-twosies throughout a neighborhood.
So for this upcoming season, do you have a plan for 1,500 tree plantings?
So it's kind of a mix. So with the Avondale climate safe neighborhoods, or climate resiliency plan was finalized in the fall. Avondale will be our focus area for this next year. So that's where we'll be doing a lot more community engagement, planting, like dedicated planting plans. And then each forester, they know where their low canopy neighborhoods are. So they're strategically planting those areas out as well. So it's not that there's a specific plan for 1,500 trees exactly down to the point. We could do that, but essentially it just kind of evolves through time over the year.
All this data allows you to set a goal for each neighborhood, right? So you've presumably got goals for each neighborhood.
Yep.
Publish those goals?
Publish them how?
I mean, I'd like to know where we plan to plant 1,500 trees. I understand it's not going to be right on because you've got to actually execute against an implementation plan. But you've got all this data to support creating a plan.
Yeah.
By neighborhood. That's what I'm interested in. Where are we going to plant on these trees?
Okay, I could definitely get that to you.
Mentioned Avondale being the focus this year. You also mentioned talking like planting to versus the kind of the mass go out planning or thinking more so about engaging any community orgs or groups in Avondale, because I know how Avondale really is.
Yep.
And a group I would just say out there like Urban League, they're really tapped into Avondale. They can help you garner those people and really bring them in and say, hey, these are people interested, but not just interested in like planting, but learning.
Yep.
And how to just maintain what they're planting and just could be a generational thing as well, passing that down to their kids and grandkids and so forth.
Absolutely. I'll say Avondale was one of the most engaged climate safe neighborhood groups, climate advisory groups I've been a part of. So, and it has a whole slew of partners. So you have the Cincinnati Zoo that's there. They have a lot of, so they're one of our partners in this planting plan. So, and then working with Groundwork and their community liaison, learning from each time that we do this, learning from, you know, how we could do it better. So our engagement process for Avondale will start this month, next month, February. And so pulling together kind of that planning committee to determine exactly where we want to focus efforts. And ideally, what I've been trying to do is break up that mass event into kind of with community partners. So for example, in Bond Hill, we chose the area that was closest to Bond Hill Rec because Rec had some improvements that they wanted to see. So I was able to use 40 of the 140 volunteers just at the rec center doing some painting and landscape improvement and tree planting on that site. And so we'll look to do the same thing in Avondale. And having, since the UTC came out, I've presented to the community council, to the business development corporation, to the zoo's partners and to the climate advisory group. So we'll continue to push that message forward, but absolutely, that's the plan. And ideally to build a plan for that neighborhood that breaks it up into sections with that community group so that we know exactly where we're going to be planting each year to reach the canopy goals for that area.
Yeah, I'd love to just be updated on that. That excites me too. I love Avondale, and I know that community has really been working hard to just make a lot of change and develop in that area. So that makes me excited.
Yeah.
And along this whole same line, I think that we're pursuing setting up targets or goals or objectives or strategic planning over how we're going to do this. I think there's a lot of opportunities, such as if you think broadly with the city, we're doing a lot of development. We're giving tax abatements. I know one of my thoughts all along is if we're giving tax abatements for new developments, why don't we include a requirement for 1%, 2%, 10%, I don't know what it is, that you have to plant trees in those areas. I'm thinking of a lot of the new condos and apartments going in that seem to be being built right up against the sidewalks. If there is a way that we can systematically or more from an ordinance standpoint and require that new developments have X% of trees or green space allocated to it. Same way a goal might be as we have projects. You mentioned CRC. It was running through my head as well. Why don't we partner with some of the city departments that when you're doing a project, let's have a goal in that project that you come out with X% trees. I just toured the new Oakley Rec Center. A lot of opportunities for landscaping, and we should just systematically have that in people's mindsets, whether it's health department, even park projects, we should establish that one of our objectives is any new development has X% of new tree plantings.
It's really a municipal building code issue.
There you go.
And many municipalities have trees and landscape in their municipal building code, even without tax abatements. So those are
That's a
very
good
green
question.
communities.
That's a
So-
good question. Do we have that in our building code? And if not, can we set a target or an objective to sort of prevail upon council for that type of thing? I think that's what our role is here. It's let's see how we can affect change and how can we systematically, either through a building code or other ordinances or whatever it is, or targets, help promote the canopy, tree canopy.
I think that's absolutely what the goal. And when you look at, I mean, you just recently saw the discussion at city council around parking lots in downtown and the requirement to put trees in a certain amount per parking space. And then the parking lot owners and developers push back against that. And that ended up getting limited a little bit. So we know that the interest is there at city council and we want to be there to help support the will to do it. Beyond that, what we've realized is that we are the only department that is really looking out for planting trees. Every other department has other goals. Economic development wants to get new houses, new jobs. That's their number one goal. The Department of Transportation Engineering, they want to get sidewalks that don't break, streets that work, that move cars around. They want to move people and pedestrians and bicycles around. So they all have different viewpoints on that. And then what we're trying to do is be the advocate for helping out to advance more trees, right? And you are on the Recreation Commission. Obviously, the way they look at a field is much different than the way that we look at a field. They see an opportunity to have soccer or frisbee or whatever they want to do, baseball in a field, where we might be looking at that and being like, well, but how can you put trees around that? And the reality is that, Recreation just doesn't have foresters on their team. They don't have people that are thinking about it in that way. So as we have these conversations with the city, we're definitely trying to position ourselves as the land manager for open space in the city, but also as the land management advisor, because we can help to advise for some of those things. So that's, kind of big picture, how we're looking to be an influence on that, but they're all tiny movements and tiny pressures to try to change, because as with a lot of things, everybody wants to get their kind of goal done, right? The metrics they're graded on. We're the ones that want to say, well, also maybe you want to make this a metric. And so that's the kind of advocacy that we're doing.
We actually just met with the planning department last week. They're studying these exact topics, like what should the planting plan or the landscape regulations be for a surface lot. So and again, like any development that comes through, our foresters are at the table saying there's not enough trees in this streetscape, or this tree planting site is too small to support this particular species. So if you're looking for a medium canopy here, you're going to have to give us this much soil volume. And so it sounds like, so essentially from that planning department meeting, they're looking at particular corridors and business districts and how to start developing regulations and incentivizing regulations, I guess, for developers to either retain what's on site through preservation or to expand and kind of redesigning streetscapes. So it's like every point of that conversation, whether it's DOTE creating a new streetscape for their Safe Streets initiative, trees are involved in every aspect. And so we are the department that all the other departments come to for guidance on that. So for the planning department, we sent them a bunch of regulations from other cities that we worked with and points of contact with planners in those cities, just to hear how kind of other things are playing out. Like the city of Atlanta has some of the best regulations in the nation. And so we're at the table. It's just, we don't really have the ability to, we're more advisor than we are enforcement in
It
that.
has to be a shared objective. To your point, if it's, we're all out here to achieve our objectives as departments, then we're not working as a city.
Mhm.
So keep pushing it
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
on all these trees. The city, I presume at one time it was urban forestry many years ago that said pear trees are great.
Yeah.
Huge disaster.
Yeah.
So I know that there's been, I think, growing awareness of the importance of native species. How is your team working to develop that approved tree list like, what are your objectives? How willing are we to plant non-native trees? How do we assess whether they're appropriate? I know lots of people, myself included, that abhor crabapple trees. They're diseased, they make a mess. They're pretty for a couple weeks, but they don't create much of a canopy either.
Right.
So how do you go about coming up with your preferred tree list? It's a long list.
It is. And so the urban streetscape is not native, is the first thing to note. So a lot of our native trees don't necessarily do well in inundation of salt and limited growth space. So the magic trees like pears over the years have been used because they grow really well, they grow fast, and they can sustain terrible conditions.
And take over forests.
And take over forests, right. Right, I have urban forestry who's like, we're trying to get trees to live in a desolate area. And then I have conservation land management that are out managing invasive trees in our forest. So it's like, it's a constant balance and a debate within our office. So Ohio has the Invasive Plant Council, and they have just this amazing rubric for how they determine what is an invasive species and what's not. It has nurserymen, it has scientists, it has ecologists, and it has activists all on the same committee, kind of feeding information together. So what I've proposed is that we use that list as our do not plant list, essentially. If it's on that list, it's not only non-native, it's invasive, but not all non-native trees are invasive species. So you think about cherry trees or cherry groves, crab apples, there's a whole list of them, right? And so it's really looking for the right tree in the right place. And that's what guides our decision process. We do have a recommended planting list, and there are no invasive species on there, but pear trees make up 12% of all of the street trees in our city. That's huge. That's a huge amount of canopy. So how do we decide to systematically remove and replace or allow to die through attrition? Like, it's a question that I've brought forward many times, that our Urban Forestry Advisory Board has brought forward many a times, to devalue some of these trees. But every tree also inherently has its value. So it has to be a decision that's made at a park board level. I mean, because we still have invasive plants that are in our landscape, right? So it's not just the trees in the streetscape. It's holistic, and it has to be a
Pear trees.
I know. They were like the magic tree.
In the spring.
I hate them.
Yeah, they are.
They fall apart. They're invasive species and they stink.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can speak for myself, but I think it's a popular view is that no one here supports invasive species. So in any way that we can help support or advocate for policy that can help us protect our forests is something that I think you'll have support here. So when you say you propose things, I'm thinking like you're actually making that decision. So
No, I'm just a lowly,
who are you
manager.
proposing it? You say
Well,
propose the list.
well, the list is in existence, right? And so we make the decision as to what we're planting, right? So we've taken invasive species off of our planting list. We're no longer planting pear trees, and a short list of other invasives. There's not many invasive trees that are on the IPCC's list that would be good street trees anyways. Think of tree of heaven, mulberry, some of these other invasives that we wouldn't necessarily be planting. But as far as pear trees go, the question that has come up is devaluation. So if somebody wants to cut down a tree, like if you had a pear tree in front of your house and you're like, I hate this tree, get it out of here, it's invasive species. Then I would come out as an urban forester, appraise the value of that tree and say, well, if you want to remove this tree, it's going to cost you $1,000 for the value of that tree. Plus you have to pay to have someone remove it, and you have to pay to get the stump ground. So it ends up being potentially a $2,500 to $3,000 endeavor to lose that tree, right? So, but because the way that the municipal code is written, that's what we're charged with. We use industry practices to appraise that value, and that's the policy that we have in place. So in order to change that policy, it would have to be determined at, I would imagine, the board level, maybe at the city level, to say, we no longer we're going to completely devalue pear trees or invasive species that are on this list, or we think that it should be devalued 80% so that you still have some, there's some, whether it's invasive or not, it's providing some environmental benefit. Do we want to completely negate that cost, or is there a percentage that we want to go towards? So I think we can definitely discuss in deeper detail and potentially present a policy forward.
We were just discussing a specific pear tree recently.
Mhm.
It gets back to that 12% of the urban forest or of the right-of-way trees, the urban forestry trees are pear trees. And so if we were to suddenly lose all that, we would lose. Exactly, yeah.
But I don't think that we want to be on a mission to keep it either.
Exactly.
So certainly, I have a real problem saying we want people to pay to get rid of something that's causing us problems.
Yeah.
So,
That's good insight.
Those are the types, this is exactly the type of discussion we should be having at this level. And it goes back to our strategic, or what do we want to be committed to? And if we are saying that we want to be known as a native species city, then this is a way to implement that objective.
Yep, absolutely.
over the past 25 years, I've watched bamboo encroach.
I knew
Property
I was waiting for that word.
Encroach our parks. Another 25 years from now, it's gonna be disastrous. And I mean, you know where I am on this. Many municipalities are prohibiting the planting of something that's so invasive. You can't get rid of it. It's not just invasive. It can't be, to get rid of it, it's worse than honeysuckle.
Oh, yeah.
Bamboo is terrible.
It's terrible. It's
And
terrible.
policy like that's definitely at the city level. That's buildings and inspections would to enforce it.
Well, and that's where we are the advocates of, that's the type of thing that should come from here, that we're advocating that be addressed.
I mean, we can definitely control what we're doing on park property and within the areas that we are, charged to manage. I think lead by example is kind of the first step, and keep continuously suggesting policy forward to the other departments and to the city as a whole would be the follow-up.
Something I'd like to discuss, if, we can promote some policy change that benefits the city. It's something where we can really add value. And I understand we don't make the decision, but we can make recommendations to council to advance it.
Any
Who's
other-
gonna advocate for this if not us?
I mean, you're the Lorax.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Cousin.
Great Dr. Seuss book.
Any other questions for?
I have one more.
Yeah.
I'm
go on.
sorry.
That's cool.
Biochar, we've discussed a bunch of times, and the last time we discussed it, the plan was still being baked, access was still being considered. We were still working through the configuration of this equipment and how it was gonna be housed. You spoke today, like, this thing's gonna be up and running by the end of the year. So it felt like we've taken a big jump from the last time we talked about it to now. So can we get some more context on biochar?
Absolutely. Yeah. So while we haven't presented on it in the past year, we've been working our butts off to keep everything rolling. So at this point, we have identified the exact configuration, all the equipment that's needed, the process to get the equipment installed. Working with Joel's team, we've looked at, what does the site design layout need to look like? An RFP was just put out recently for that final design, as well as the mechanical engineering that's needed to tie everything in. We're feeling pretty solid on our capital expectations for this. And as of, not much has changed from the operation plan and business plan because we've cooked that out, kind of a year ago at least. And so as we identified the equipment that we need, we know how much input versus output we have. We have an MOU that's already signed by Great Parks to say, here's your $300,000. We've worked with the Office of Environmental Sustainability to learn more about their revolving loan fund, with the mayor's office, who's on board for us to be one of the pilot projects for use of that, to recoup the benefits of the IRA funding. So if we're up and running, and if this is in the ground within 2024, then we can immediately apply for those IRA funding in the next tax cycle. And so, politics are going to keep, if that's the thing, like we've been We've been cooking on this for a while.
So this RFP is gonna go through procurement? Is that how that's gonna work?
Mhm.
And then you'll be coming back to us with a proposal or a contract?
Correct. So that'll be for the design work for how the, I believe, Joel can speak to this more, but the design work for how the, stuff that we're buying from the Biochar machine provider will capture that heat and we'll take it to a boiler. But then that boiler has to then be tied into the existing mechanicals at Warder Nursery. And so that's what the RFP is for the designer that will come up with exactly how that the electrics work, how all of that, the mechanicals work for that piece.
Got it.
I mean, the big uncertainty that we've been dealing with since summertime and the shift away from Deal Road was what's the facility going to look like? We know the cost for the machinery, but then the facility is the big unknown. And what, we don't want to bring to you is, we think it's 300,000 and then it ends up being 600,000. So we're trying to get that piece locked up.
Facility's still unknown.
It's not that it's unknown, it's that we're working towards,
We're refinement.
we're working for, this is what it's gonna cost. So what we know since we did the tours over the summer is that it's actually gonna be on the extreme east side of the property where there's currently a fence, and we talked about kind of there's trees and a lot of scrubby like invasives behind that. We're gonna move that fence back about 30 or 40 feet to put the facility back there, which will also align it to be as close as possible to the existing mechanicals at Warder Nursery. So that distance has been shrunk from some of the other sites we looked at.
Yeah.
We also then, Joel identified through the old plans that there was a big, was it 13,000 gallon diesel, 10,000 gallon diesel tank that was below it, that was the backup.
Yeah.
We worked through making sure that we had appropriate set-offs from that.
Freeze if the boiler goes out, right?
Well, I think
And then the other piece of it that we actually just learned within the last couple of weeks is that
A road.
well, we're working with Springfield Township on an easement to get the road through and to bring the electrical power through. But then the other piece that we actually just established this week in our learnings from, we're going to talk about in a second, but in our learnings about pole barns and the pre-manufactured building that we're going to install at Ludlow at the new DNR headquarters is that they're coming in higher than we were expected. And so we're going to have our facilities teams actually going to construct that for us. So we'll buy the materials, but then instead of having a company install that, we're going to have our team install it. And with 8 months or so, or 6 to 8 months of time to lead up to that and kind of plan it into their work, they'll be able to do that for us in-house, which should be some cost savings as well. But we're still trying to get it to that. We already know that it's going to be.
Qualifications to build this structure. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, our team.
Y'all are really becoming more of a DIY crew every time.
Trying to save money.
Contracts are increasing 30% every time you put them out to bid. You gotta start thinking in-house.
And so our hope is, again, because what we know is that the 1.1 million that we had originally had identified when I first started with the partnership of Great Parks isn't going to be enough to do the whole project, right? And so we're identifying these other areas to bring funding in, but then we still got to keep it as tight as possible because we don't want to, that's just what we have to do. And so that's the piece that we're trying to make sure we have right.
When you go to build your pole barn,
Mhm.
please compact the soil underneath it properly.
It's going to have a concrete slab,
Thanks God.
8
I
inches.
did one and I didn't compact the soil properly and I'm in a big mess.
Awesome engineers on our team.
We want to have, but that's part of it, right?
Fix that. Okay.
But that's part of it too, is every inch of concrete is an additional cost, right? So currently, I was just talking to Joel yesterday about, we're gonna have an 8-inch concrete slab because this is gonna be heavy equipment. We're gonna have, bobcats and loaders that are gonna be coming in and driving on it. So we want to make sure that it's not gonna crack in a couple of years and we're coming back to you in 5 years saying, we got to redo the foundation. So these are all the pieces we're putting together.
Well, and I think that's where we are. I mean, we are all, as far as I'm concerned, we're all so excited about this project.
So excited.
Where I think Molly was alluding to as well. We were here in July or August where we were saying we have to place the order for the equipment.
Mhm.
And at that time, we said, we would like to, as a board, see the full package.
And that's what we've been, yep.
And that's where I'm thrilled at where we've gotten from what we're hearing today. I just am looking forward to the package.
Mhm.
But here it is. And we did discuss the financial pro formas in the past. I have no clue if that's where we are today. There were a lot of questions that we had at that point in time, but I think as soon, and I think I'm hearing that February is when you would.
Hoping.
Okay,
Open. Again, we want to make sure that we've got it cooked. We don't want to bring it to you until we know what it's going to cost.
that's true. And
Make some guesses.
and I agree with that, but think about the amount of time. I also don't want to get too far ahead.
Exactly. And we're in the same thing, right? Which is, we had talked in the past about potentially approving different parts of this as we go, but until we know what that building is going to cost, that's been the big holdup, is to make sure that we've got our arms around that.
Yep.
Because, and you and I were talking just the other day, I mean, there's a bit of a leap of faith to this whole thing. We're one of the first cities that are going to do biochar, but we want to have it as tight as we can. And there's still a possibility that there will be unknowns in this project. In fact, probably likely, because it's Cincinnati Parks. But we want to have it as buttoned up as possible. So we can at least show you the due diligence that went into it and the estimates and the projections and the kind of guesses on some level that we're going to put into it, but we want to have that tightened up.
And I would encourage you, whenever you have that point, please don't wait till Friday before this meeting, because this is a huge project, and I would like to have a little more time to delve into it.
It is really complex, and I feel like it'll be a very thorough conversation if we're packaging it all together and presenting all of those different concepts. So just a forewarning for that, whether it's the February meeting or if you wanted to have a special meeting even before that to kind of go through it. Because it is very complex. So the one piece that we do, there are several elements that require approval essentially as soon as possible. And that one of those is the equipment package, that we put that RFP out in April of last year. We finally got into negotiation with the contractor in July. The price increased in August because we weren't able to meet that first deadline. And so that price increase is coming again because the next proposal lasted until the end of the year. So the more that we, kind of try to figure out all of the, like Jason said, it does. Yeah. Price continues to.
Leave that to you too. I mean, we're here, we want to support you. And if you need a special meeting, let us know. I'll leave that to you. If it is going to be February, let's make sure we build into the agenda that we've got this much time to really look at it. So I'll leave that to you guys to decide.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you,
Crystal.
Crystal.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Like you don't need much sleep.
Yeah. So take back to your team. We think you're doing a great job.
Absolutely.
And the work being done and just the analytics that we have are just incredible. So.
Absolutely. It's an
A lot
honor.
of comfort knowing that you're heading up and you got a great team underneath you.
Yes, sir. It's an honor to serve. So we have the urban forestry assessment.
Yeah, let's go in
Oh, okay.
I'm sitting here.
while you're there.
Yeah. So with that, put forward the board report. Pretty much wanted to use this opportunity for the State of the Urban Forest to kind of explain the entire process, to kind of give you a background on what this fund serves. So in the board report, you have kind of the report, you have our work plan for for fiscal year 26, as well as the anticipated budget for fiscal year 26 as well. So this would be a request to approve recommendation to council for continuing the assessment at 31 cents per front foot. And then we will head to council for approval for the determination of need.
So moved. Oh. We've got a movement here, so we got a second. Now we can have questions. Are there any further questions? This is great.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Crystal. Planning and design. Joel, you got anything for us? Good morning.
Quite a few things this morning. Go ahead.
Joel,
We're gonna.
What do we skip?
so this is on page 24 is the action agenda, and then on page 27 is Joel's report. I'm actually going to ask Mr. President if we could do number 5 on the action agenda first. We do have he already had to leave. Is he done? Okay.
You had to walk.
We have a guest from the Department of Community and Economic Development that's here to answer any questions you have about item 5, which is the Ohio Avenue Sycamore Street property swap. So if we could start with that one, so that we can allow him to get to his day, that'd be great. It's okay. I mean, just, yeah, see if he's ready. We can also, I can start with kind of an overview of it. So, as you'll see on page,
I think it's simple.
so on page, 84 shows the properties. Hi, Danny, thanks. We're moving you up to next so you can get on with your day. So,
Wait a minute.
84.
84.
That's it right there. It looks like some maps, yeah.
Okay.
There are 2 maps, 84 and 85.
Yeah.
So, there are 3 properties along Sycamore Street as it heads up towards the new reconfigured intersection by Hopkins Park, that are public spaces that have trees and plantings, and they're owned by the city and kind of under the control of Department of Community and Economic Development. Last year, at some point, they put out an RFP for development opportunities and proposals for those areas. We saw that right away, and in our role as defenders of public space and protectors of public space, we reached out and said, hey, we would love to consider if we could help manage these spaces. We knew the community was going to want to preserve them. They're great open public spaces. We talked to Lou's team in the Riverfront District are the ones that are in charge of Hopkins Park and would be in charge of these. They said that they could absorb taking care of these parks with minimal disruption or minimal additional cost to their operations. And they have actually already started doing that. So we reached out to Community and Economic Development and said, the community is not going to turn this into housing. We'd love to take these parks and preserve them. And they were like, that's great. So then we started to kind of move forward with that as us absorbing that property. And then there was a proposal to redevelop the Jackson Brewery, which is it's just off of this map with the green square on it. But it's a historic brewery that's going to be turned into a brewery heritage hotel. And Sugar Creek has a really cool proposal for that. We sat in some meetings with that where we talked about, we actually own this tiny piece of property that you can see there's an old right of way that which is the kind of long, which goes up the hill. And then we own this little piece of property right there. Our understanding is this is where the incline used to be that would go up to Bellevue Park. But it's obviously just a hill and we only own this 0.2 acres approximately. You can see in the description above it. 2 different parcels that total about 0.2 acres. And so the deal we worked out with the Department of Community and Economic Development is they would get us fair market value for this as part of the development deal with Sugar Creek. And we would then assume responsibility and protection of these 3 parcels, which add up to about 0.35 acres. So we're actually gaining 0.15 acres in the overall transaction of space that we're going to preserve.
Can we stop a second? You look at this map, I have no clue.
Yeah,
There's no streets, there's
We need a little bit bigger map.
perspective.
Figure out.
Yeah, it's like, I think I know what you're talking about.
Common city, they narrow in. This is sorry,
Make it bigger.
no worries. This is McMicken,
McMicken or McMillan?
McMillan, thank you. No, McMicken, it is.
It's Mc,
Yeah, it's McMicken. So this is McMicken right along here. This is Elm Street right here. So Elm Street dead ends into kind of like a hillside there. And that's what this is. This whole area here is that hillside.
are we in OTR or are we up? in-
OTR, correct. So
Wait, that's.
Rhinegeist is right here on the map.
Where? Okay,
Elm Street goes up, Rhinegeist is right here.
okay, you're going north.
Down, yeah.
You're going north. Okay,
Yep. That's the Mohawk district.
Mohawk. Okay,
It's
gotcha.
basically the very beginning of it. Mohawk kind of starts right at Elm and McMicken there.
Okay, gotcha.
And so Elm Street dead ends here, Rhinegeist is down here, the streetcar kind of turns right at Rhinegeist and comes down.
So where's the church that's right there somewhere?
That's this right here, right? Is it?
I believe it's a little more to the east.
Yeah, just a little bit further down. would be the
Okay, okay, gotcha.
And so this is just a hillside, and I've been out there. This street actually dead ends here and kind of gets pretty crazy right there. This is the brewery that will be restored. But this is just kind of a scrubby hillside. If you go up a little further, I'm blanking.
Above it is McMillan then.
West Clifton.
Yes.
West Clifton kind of turns right up here,
Yeah.
and there's that apartment building that's right up there, and then across the street is the lower part of Bellevue Hill.
So is that a paper street or is that a,
Paper Street.
that's a paper street? How about going east-west?
Yep.
Paper as well, right?
And so
Okay.
the city controls this land, and that would
Okay.
be their contribution to this.
And
project.
what do we control?
We control these two
Oh,
parcels
okay.
here. You can see the line right there that separates the two. There's two parcels right there.
Okay,
And they are this 0.099 acres for each one. They're identical. The green covers them both up and puts them together and aggregates.
yep.
Flat maps are not just the friendliest to understand.
Yeah, right, you're right.
Next time, we'll make sure we have a broader map that we'll include in the packet.
So if I'm visualizing this, you're going up, up Elm Stream, you pass Rhinegeist, and then we get to McMicken, dead end. So you're talking about up here,
Up the hill, yep.
up the hill, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, correct. It's just a kind of a scrubby hillside.
And what is planned for this use?
What do you want to do with that?
Yeah, what do you want to do?
So their proposal, Sugar Creek is also the owner of Cincinnati Beverage Company, so the whole Christian Moorline portfolio.
Yep.
They will be repurposing the existing brewery structure into sort of a brewery hotel experience, and then along McMicken with the street frontage, they're planning some mixed use, potentially a parking structure to serve the broader district. And I do believe their renderings, they included some sort of homage to the old incline, which would function as sort of a private public space that people could sort of, walk up the old steps, or the old incline. And right now they're in the midst of sort of site assemblage, so they're just trying to acquire all of the appropriate pieces so that they can move forward with their development. Private property owners that they're currently negotiating with along McMicken. So they're in the early stages, but this is a pretty critical piece to sort of unlocking the broader development and allowing it to move forward.
Okay, so before we talk about swapping, let's first talk about up here, the concept of giving up this piece of property. Any questions or concerns?
None.
I feel the same way. It would never have use to us, except that it's just there and it's not even forested as far as I'm concerned. It's probably honeysuckle.
Correct.
Okay, so now knowing that we're over that piece or comfortable there, talk about what we are getting.
Mhm.
Are we trading for?
So if we
So why we want that Sycamore property?
Yeah.
If we go to 85. So again, to share some context. So this is Milton, this is Sycamore, and these actually, this should be on top and this should be on the bottom from a north.
Those
south.
are two different pictures.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, never
I'm
mind.
going this for now, right? I'm gonna draw through this.
Say again, what's Milton and what's
So
Sycamore?
this is Milton, right here. This is Milton's, the bar. This is Sycamore. And then Liberty is right about here.
Yeah.
Right, again, ignoring this photo completely, but Liberty would be right about there, and then one block up is Milton's. And then as you go up the hill, you go up, there's the Sycamore Hill green space, which we manage. We actually just had a really great project last year to remove a bunch of honeysuckle to push back into that and to really open up that grass area. Community is super excited about it. And then as you get to the top of Sycamore, which is over here, and then it turns, right? There's a whole bunch of row houses and condominiums that are right here. As you come up Sycamore turns, Hopkins Park is over here.
Yeah.
And this is where that new interchange is. Again, ignore this now, but that new interchange is here. The Flatiron Coffee Shop is like in this area here. And then Jacksonville Park's like over this way. And if you
On the
go-
bottom, one, that main road at the top that's Sycamore?
That's Sycamore. And that has turned from here, way up the hill, but it turns up here and it turns right there.
What's the street there on the right?
This one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna need somebody with a map to help me out with that.
I used to live there. Walker Street,
Walker Street.
that's Walker.
And then there's another street here, and then this is Hopkins Park right here.
So a question, Jason. So the top, let's look at the top. That's in between Milton's on the south
And then it's
and
like,
Bowl, and that's Bowl up there.
yep,
What is in the middle of those parcels?
their homes.
I believe that's the same family.
Oh, yeah,
Say what? Say it again?
A single family home.
So the bottom corner there, that's where there's a pergola and paved, and it's a park bench there or something.
Yes.
Okay. So that in essence is like a little park sitting area with, and you're saying that we already are maintaining that
We
space?
started to maintain it a bit.
Okay.
We've done a couple.
Who,
It's owned by the city of Cincinnati,
so this is city owned. These two
Correct.
parcels are city owned.
but they're currently not parked, which means city could conceivably turn them into housing or do other things with them. What we're proposing is taking them over in order to maintain them as public space, preserve them for future generations and for the community to enjoy.
Reference.
Okay. I can pass this around as well. Yeah, so this is a map here. So this is Sycamore Hill. This is Liberty.
Mhm,
This is Milton right there.
mhm.
This is that little space right there. You can see it's got some trees in it. And then this is the other space right there by Bull Street. And then again, we've got Liberty. And then as you go up Sycamore Hill,
That's
we
all
maintain
our
this space here, which again, there have been the conversations in the past about putting row houses in there, which is not something I'm excited about. And then this is that upper space right there. And then again, if you Sycamore turns and then you come to, this doesn't even have the new interchange
Yeah.
here, because Hopkins Park now has a new additional kind of toe on the front of it. So I can move this around however anybody would like to see.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Got it.
Thanks, Jenny.
And so Jason, what's the justification to Molly's question? Why do we want this?
That's the park board. I think we like preserving public spaces. And these are 3 community spaces that serve this community. This is going to be a growing community that's going to, continue to, as we're seeing over the Rhine, continue to change its look. I think this is an area that's going to continue to get investment. We're preserving these 3 public spaces, with a bunch of trees, which a bunch of open areas to sit in. That's beautiful public spaces.
And it doesn't increase your cost at all because you're already doing it anyway.
I mean, there's some marginal increases to them, but again, when I talked to Lou's team, I was like, does this even make sense? Can we, because a lot of in the past, the Department of Community Development doesn't have a team that takes care of this, right? So I'm sure if there was a call out, public services would come and attend to something that happened there. But there's nobody that's like thinking about these spaces or managing these spaces. It's been a lot of community projects, community-led volunteerism, neighbors that pull weeds or prune stuff, but they are a little bit of kind of turnkey too. There's not a lot, because it's some concrete spaces, because it's some old trees, there's not a ton of planting beds that get active management. So it's a little bit just keeping them clear, making sure nothing goes wrong with them. And then I think slowly, you guys know Lou, Lou's gonna start to come up with some ideas, and his team's gonna start to come up with ideas to activate these spaces more.
Hang on a second, Jason, before we get too excited about this. The Sycamore site between Alma and Walker makes a bit of sense. It's right next to a park. It's got some space, some room. These other lots on Sycamore and Milton, let's be clear, these are not public spaces. These are vacant residential lots. That's what they were established to be. That's what the size of these lots entails. And it sounds to me like the city just needs somebody to take care of this property that's owned by the city. And if that's the case, that's fine. I mean, it's owned by the city. We're in the business of managing, green space area. And if that's what the city needs us to do to take this on, great. But the idea that these are like new public park spaces is overstated.
Not new public park spaces, but they currently do have seat walls, and they are like little pocket park areas. They're not owned by parks, but they are little pocket park areas that have, they're not just a vacant lot. I don't know if maybe street view, there we go.
Yeah, I was good.
So again, I can move this around, but this is this is Milton's here.
Yeah.
This is the one right across, but it does have, a tree grove, and it's got some.
Where the pergola is.
There's a pergola.
Yeah.
So this space needs some work. Is that what it looks like right now?
No.
No, it's.
I don't know what year that picture is.
Oh, boy.
I know it has.
Here's where I'm going with this. I want to
Maybe
be
not with.
July of 2020.
Here's where I'm going with it. The moving the property to the city for this development, this is great, but I just want to make sure we're not taking on, property that needs some work now that we don't have a budget to support.
This is the second space just north, that's the bowl there. So we can see
Yeah,
that space,
yeah,
like, but
I mean,
it's
I
got
will
some kind of.
say the bench and the pergola is there, yes.
So
But that tree on the
Got a lot of content.
sidewalk sitting there, no, that is not there anymore.
there's also a coffee shop that just developed there as well. So I go there sometimes and I see that space and it's actually.
That's
nice.
the second space as we head up.
Right across the
You
street.
think it's in good condition?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
'cause
think-
if it looks like this, I've got some real.
yeah, I mean, I drive down this hill almost every day just to go downtown.
Yeah.
It's my shortcut.
Yeah.
Get through traffic, but again, there's a coffee shop right across the street. And, you know, they put in investment in redeveloping that space for years. It's finally completed, and I think this would just complement.
This is the one that's got the coffee shop across the street.
Yeah, this is across Flatiron. I'm
Yeah.
trying to let these spaces down.
Yeah, so this is the one at Bowl. Again, it's got a planter and some trees and some
Yeah.
peat walls.
I agree. This one makes sense to me. It's by a park, it's by that Flatiron Cafe.
Let's see if I can.
Oh, okay, this is further down.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
This area is all area that we've
Got you, okay.
Here's what why I would see justification in getting these between Milton and Bowl.
Mhm.
Is because in my mind, we have had brought to us in the past the concept of putting more row houses north of there along Sycamore Hill. What this does, in my mind, it helps us preserve a green space. Above this is where they've done a lot of deforestation and development of apartments and stuff. So I would like.
This is the spot that's across.
Right, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the spot.
Yeah, I think
Across from
that
Flatiron.
that's a no-brainer.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it one of the one across from Milton's? I think right behind
Mhm.
that property, isn't there a green space already, like a resident or community?
There is one that's, I think, right down Bowl. It's like right in this area. It's
Yeah.
currently managed by CRC. We've actually had people come to us and ask us to take that from CRC. But there is a green space that's like I think it's right down here somewhere.
There's
That's the ball hoop.
Oh, there's
a Milton Street Park that
maybe
is,
it's Mills, yeah.
it's ours.
Okay,
It's there. It's between Milton and Bowl. That's up the hill farther on Milton, between Milton and Bowl. What I like about this and what I would see as motivation is it helps maintain, because what could happen in the future is the same developer could say, I want this corner, and could develop a high rise or could develop condos, apartments, or whatever, which could be good or bad. In my mind, I like maintaining the green corridor going up Sycamore. And that would be the one reason why I would say to have it under our control, we would have to approve anything that's developed there.
that's the one at Bowl.
Right.
I know like over here.
I think if we own it, we can benefit from the sale proceeds related to it.
That
This
or
is not
to,
strategic land for park.
well, right above it, we already are. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a great large area of green space that's
Yeah.
sacred.
That's
Yeah.
where that would be my justification.
So we're going to discuss the second hunk? This part? Is
Well, I know the three of us already think that's a no-brainer, but let's talk about it. What's your question?
I'm not sure I understand where it is.
Oh, okay.
The
You know
second hunk.
the Flatiron Building
Yeah,
up at the top? That's right here.
okay,
So it's across the street. from
okay,
that.
I got it now. Thank you. I have no sense of direction.
Well, this doesn't help you. Okay,
We can do this on the big computer too.
We should just.
We'll take-
well, are we there?
I think we're all looking
Yeah.
loud.
I think,
Sanitize.
One second, we're gonna just pull this up here and I'm gonna show you where the second property is.
Yeah.
Cool, sorry.
You mean the second property up on top?
The property that Susie's asking about.
He knows where it is.
I got it now.
Okay.
We got it.
Don't waste your time.
So I think we're all saying the top is a no-brainer. Some questions about the below, but what's our thinking at this point in time of the two between Milton and Bowl?
I mean, do we really feel like we'll have that capacity to really maintain it, really take care of it? Cause I mean, they're cleaned up. I've seen it cleaned up before. It looks really nice with the concrete benches. I've actually there's a lot of walkers that go up and down that hill, and I've seen people actually stop and rest there. Cause I mean, that's quite a walk.
Yeah.
Especially on hot days, and I've been one of those who sat there, got lost in my phone. So I'm just trying to make it make sense for us to have that, but at the same time, make it make sense to, to even.
And I take it the city's already agreed to let these go to us,
Correct. That's what this property swap is.
already gotten that part done.
They are happy for us to preserve them and
Okay,
maintain them. I think community development's always looking for opportunities. Again, as we talked about with Crystal's presentation, every department has different goals. And so they were taking proposals for folks that wanted to redevelop these. That's when I reached out and said, I talked to our team and then B talked to them and said, I think the community is going to push back. These pocket parks were flipped into residential opportunities. Like, how far along are you guys? And that's when they were like, if you guys can help us with that, that'd be great. And so then we started to explore that. And then it's gotten tied into this other piece so that it can be a true swap rather than just us taking over responsibility to them. But yeah,
You didn't know there was gonna be so much action on this, did you?
I'm glad it's being discussed. We're excited about it, and I think we're really equally excited that we were able to sort of get interested developer to agree to fair market value so that it can benefit parks.
I mean, one of the things that I've used is we've had a couple people come forward with us in neighborhoods to be like, hey, there's some vacant lots that we've like mowed the grass on and planted some bushes on. Can you take that over? And we've been less quick to jump into that. We want to preserve space, but if it's along a residential street, just because the community's taken it over and started to fix it up a bit and preserved it currently doesn't necessarily mean that it's a park. These are, pocket parks that have been developed a while ago. Somebody, the city, I'm guessing, put infrastructure in, seat walls, plantings, pergolas. And that's
Land bank exists for that.
exactly.
That's what the land bank is for. And I mean, that's really where these kind of lots fit, to really think strategically about what is the highest use for these properties. And I just have some reservation about getting in the business of accepting these little these are residential lots. They may not be used for that right now, but a 0.119 acre lot was established for residential use. That may not be what it is right now, but I've got some reservation about taking this kind of stuff on. That said, this does give us opportunity to consider what highest and best uses for these as an opportunity arises. So at least from my perspective, accepting this lot isn't my endorsement that this will be like forever park property, right? And the concern is, for me, when we do get some recommendation that this turn into a higher and better use, I don't want to be sitting in the crossfire as a park commissioner for saying we're gonna release this 0.119 acre parcel of land because the highest and best use for the community is something different than this pocket park. So that's where my reservation sits right here. It's not the green sycamore hill. That's a sacred piece of ground in my estimation, and I would never sit here and support anything but it being green. But these are different from my perspective. So I'd rather see those properties stay with DCED and allow them to do what they do, which is consider highest and best use for city property. And accept the Alma and Walco property as an exchange. If we want to continue to improve those lots and support them over time while they remain park property, it sounds like we're already doing that. So why take it under our umbrella?
The analysis we did was that was just from a different lens, which is that I saw them as, I and the team saw them as existing pocket parks that we wanted to preserve for the community. And so that's just a different, and I'm up for whatever you guys want to do. We can take care of them and leave them with DCED, but the analysis we did was from the preserving public spaces, preserving park land, whether it's kind of a big grassy field or whether it's a pocket park in the community, that does have value in the community.
The other point that's brought up is, historically speaking, we've never gotten rid of or sold park property without getting a swap and getting land back in some other area, historically speaking. So that's why this has all come forward, you know? Once again, they're trying to fulfill what historically we've always done.
Said the team's pretty much in agreement, it's like something everyone feels like, yeah, we should definitely have this. It's no problem to us, we can take care of it, kind of deal.
Well, I'll call the question then, and from my perspective, I fully understand, Molly, your point, and it still remains it would then remain under our control. We could then, if it weren't under our control, DCED could decide to sell it to a developer and do something, right down the block from there is a very large photo museum going in, which is
Beautiful.
Photo focus.
yeah, and it's a big thing right there. So it does sort of help us maintain some green on this side of the street. So I would like to go ahead and make a motion that we accept this. We've had the discussion. I think we all know there are concerns, and not to set this as a precedent, that we would just take property to offset something that we have value. But I'll make a motion that we accept the land swap as proposed to us here. Do we have a second? Second, okay. Further discussion?
Just have one request, you just keep us updated on what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or anything, I'll feel a little.
We'll get some photos.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, that was from July of 22.
Yeah.
So after you guys had hired me, but before you brought me on, but some updated photos. I'm sure Lou's team's got it looking pretty good.
Good.
Just so happened there was a down tree branch the day that the Google machine drove by.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
I
Those
got a
opposed?
record with my dismissing views.
And they're very valid.
What's that?
Exactly.
Well, and Molly, what I'd say to that too is that I think it's a definite area where I want to get more learning from the board about what you guys are looking to do. Might be an example of, in the process of becoming as a non-parks person and coming into this job, I very much embrace, like, let's preserve land and let's preserve these pocket parks. But I think you're right. This highest and best use conversation needs to be one that's had. I obviously had the viewpoint and staff that these were established pocket parks, and therefore I might have placed an extra level of preservation focus on it that I want to kind of learn where the board's at with these, because I do think that moving forward, especially as you look at downtown and the conversations they're having around parking lots and other things, there could be lots of opportunities for pocket parks. And maybe we even come up with a strategy that is some sort of a interim pocket park strategy, right? And again, these two spots aside, but maybe there's an opportunity for us to have different thoughts about pocket parks and what they are and kind of what our position is as preservers in the interim and long term. Right? So happy to get more insight into that as we kind of think through that.
I love pocket parks. I mean, they're really.
Absolutely.
They serve a great purpose. This is the park rich stress.
Yeah.
From Ziegler Park to the top of the hill and Milk Park.
I mean, there's a lot of hill, go up and down that hill, man, that'll be great for them to sit somewhere like, it's nice.
It was funny as it took me so long to use my finger to go down Sycamore Hill, but I've ridden down that on a bicycle before in my past life. And it goes very quickly when you go down it on a red bike.
There was a time when I could rollerblade up it and down it, it's harder.
Scary. That's some out of the old movie Airborne.
Yeah.
That's some stuff from that. Right?
Down is
So-
hard.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for attending.
Thank you. Joel, we're back to you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank Director Carter too for her work with us on this.
All right, I'm gonna skip back to the action items, starting with number 1. if That's okay with you all, and go through those, and then I'll go through my report on some updates on other projects beyond those. Number 1 is one we've been talking about for 4 or 5 months now. Low Avenue in our headquarters service garage.
Some more trees.
Yes.
Hey, you need some more trees.
You need trees on that
I
line.
think Ann is on that. They're working. Good go. Yeah,
For lovers of Mount Storm Park, moving the Division of Natural Resources to the base of Mount Storm Park is going to be good for Mount Storm Park.
Really looks nice.
It does look Great, Joel.
Okay, this is the last piece we're bringing to you of this. We've been 2 rounds of bidding the Ludlow service garage behind this building. We did this initially in October 2023, got 1 qualified bid, 1 additional bid that was disqualified for lack of putting the paperwork together correctly. That bid was astronomical in our opinion. We rethought this, went back to purchasing, asked if there's anything we could do to make it any easier. Solicit different vendors. 2 months later, on the end of December, we got 3 bids again, 1 of which is qualified. So the same contractor won that both times. There was $100,000 plus discrepancy in those bids from the first to the second bid. So we actually, by rebidding it, did save a bunch of money on this. But the overall cost of that building was anticipated to be via March 2023 estimates at about $110,000, and it's $290,000 for this building. The building itself is 25 by 40. It sits in the back of this, as you guys have seen before. I think I included the plans. Maybe I didn't in this.
Did not.
That's okay.
It's in that parking lot.
Sits in the back of that parking. There's 3 10 by 10 doors. Essentially, it serves the urban forestry's ability to maintain their equipment, store fuels and things like that we don't want anywhere near our employees in the bottom of the basement or a building somewhere. That is a need from Reading that wasn't realized in that building. So after bidding this twice and talking to Jason and the whole team about this a whole lot of times, to me, it's still a whole lot of money to spend on a building of this magnitude. We're also getting a 8-inch thick, 20-inch shroud around the whole building, which will allow them a place to actually do some maintenance of equipment and things like that. But at $190 a square foot for the building itself and $290 over this whole thing for essentially a garage, that's about at the maximum of what we can stand, in my opinion. We can't continue to bid things and be 3 times as much. So as Jason alluded to earlier, this has caused our team a lot of pause in this specific situation. And we're going to start doing a whole lot more bidding in-house as far as, we get a lot of designs from contractors, from vendors, and that's probably not going to change because we don't have the capacity in-house to design everything that we do. But we can cost estimate a lot of things to get really, really close. And we're going to do a lot more of that internally. So in my opinion, this building's overpriced, but it's the best option we have forward to serve the needs of our team in the time that we have. So
We've gotten 5 bids, even though 3 of them have been disqualified.
Yes.
This is the lowest of those 5, but none of it's not like we have one that's lower by a nickel, let alone lower by a lot, that we have any reason to think we can. So
yeah, that was the point. Can we break this into different parts, do something different and save significant money is how we approach the answer to this. And the answer is probably not. We're going to lose 3 months, marginally save money, if that, at, less than $50,000 in difference to hold this up for 6 months.
Additionally, if you turn to page 26, we've provided which is just the next page, we've provided a breakdown of all of the costs of this project. In the first column to your left, you see that originally we had a project that was $1.9 million. We sold the Reading Road site for $2.17 million. So we were originally going to have about $270,000 of remaining dollars that we could use for other park priorities. If you look at the column on the right, you see that we've spent, if we do this garage, we'll spend about $2.017 million, which means we're going to spend about $117,000 more than we were originally planning to. So part of the reason why it's not that full $200,000 more is that Joel's team has saved money along the way. And so we're still going to have $1.5 million in that bottom right-hand corner. $150,000. Yeah, $150,000 of money that we can still spend for other park priorities. So it is a little bit more, but we're at a point where we need the facility. Generations of park employees are going to use this facility. We could spend a bunch more months spinning our wheels, trying to nickel and dime it and try to save some money there, but we're going to use it. We have the funding available for it. And on some level, I want Joel and Chris to move on to other priorities we need to close this project out.
Yes,
That's the recommendation.
Yeah.
Let's get the.
Our approval. Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
You know what they say, Jim, don't talk.
Totally. Yep. Totally. All right. We're at 11 o'clock, so we're going to move quickly through the rest of these, and we're not going to talk past the sale. So the Mount Echo Pavilion roof repairs, there are some good photos of this right there.
Talk, or you want me to talk?
You can talk, yeah.
Are we?
Joel, it's your turn. It's your time.
Fine with me. So we've been working on this for a few months too, as you all are aware in the picture that Jason's showing right now. We've got blown off cornice there. We had a bad windstorm. I don't remember exactly when it was, May of last year probably. Had Imbus come out, address, and our team, thanks to Andy and his team again, they came and tarped all this up, buttoned it all down so we didn't get any additional water leakage inside of this. Over the past few months, as you can see, there's some very unique parts to this Mount Echo Pavilion cornice that you're seeing. All of those parts are copper that you see that's torn apart. And all of those have to be refitted. So there's only a handful of folks that can do that. We've again enacted Megan to have this quote so that we can shepherd those contractors underneath them and make all those work in concert together to get this done. They returned a price to not only fix all of that stuff and fix the remainder of the roof, but to fix some of the underpinning that you see here. You can see that's 3 or 4 repairs deep at this point, and it's just pretty much chicken wired together. This repair that you're approving today, hopefully, is to take all of that stuff and kind of put it back to the way it actually should have been so that this won't happen again in this form or fashion. We're gonna have actual good anchoring points for some of this instead of that wire that you see now. So the bid came back to do this work at $207,000. There was an initial allotment, I believe, under 212000 a few years ago that the board put aside $300,000 for this purpose. To this point, we've spent about $10,000 on the assessment and figuring out what the rest of it's going to cost. And they returned a $207,000 proposal to get this work completed.
Okay.
I recommend moving forward with that proposal.
We all know that needs to be done. We want to get it done.
Amen.
We had proposed, we've got 291 sitting there to cover this, asking for approval to award to Megan, correct?
At 207, yes, sir. And the remainder of that money will be.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion
So moved.
and a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, commissioners. Item number 3 for me is a change order for Alm Sanitary Service Line. We've been working on this project again for about a year and been frankly gone round and round with MSD on the classification of this line. We were taking a 4-inch line that served 2 homes that we're not going to put a condo building up there. I'm pretty sure you're not going to turn the caretaker's house into a condo building. So first and foremost, MSD, after the fact, after the permitting process, made us treat this like a water main instead of a water service, which meant we had to upsize this from a 4-inch to at least a 6. We bartered to a 6, which is still 10 times the capacity we'll ever need. 13 inspectors later, bottom at the Tusculum end of this, there is a gas line that was not marked, was not known. This is exactly the point of why we're digitizing all of our assets on every part, is so that that does not happen. In any case, by the time we get down to that, it requires us to put an additional utility access hole in to fix that conflict and tie back into Tusculum. So a part of the change order that's before you today is for a new manhole essentially that has to connect these two to allow us proper drainage and proper fall into the Tusculum sanitary sewer. Beyond that, because we're doing that and because of this crossing, we have to use a different kind of pipe essentially under the creek to ensure that we're not going to degrade that pipe. MSD is requiring us to use ductile iron pipe versus the HDPE that's used everywhere else, just under the creek crossing, just so that pipe doesn't corrode and cause the same problem we're fixing 400 feet north of here or south of here. So those 2 things. While we're doing all this, there was something I wanted to include in this project from the beginning, but didn't. Along the steps to the caretaker's house, if you walk down to the 2nd level bathroom there, along those stairs has always been an eroded mess. There's always, there's a big pocket right there next to the stairs, which is frankly unsafe. We're going to do the same thing we did to Inwood there. If you know the stairs along Vine Street, we put in flowable fill and on top of that pressed in riprap so that erosion completely goes away. We won't have to mess with it again. We had them add that into this change order as well so that we can fix all that and be completely done with all.
And that is included in the 39?
Correct.
Yes, sir. Now beyond 39, this was written last week. There was a part of that was for 2 water valves at the bottom of the Tusculum where our 2-inch water line runs up to the comfort station, that 700 feet in parallel with this that we're fixing right now. We found that both of those valves are pretty old and we're both leaking. So we're leaking water out of our water supply from that road. And we asked them at first to put that in here to correct those valves while we were doing this. The price came back at $11,000, which was crazy. I called Andy Sherman, our trusty facilities supervisor. He priced that out for me today for $3,500, so we're taking that back in-house. So I'm asking you for a different amount than is shown here on this page. We're actually asking you all to approve 32,060.
32,000.
Okay.
060. We're gonna do those.
Again, Joel, this is necessary repairs.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, 32,000 is within your level, but I know it's because it's a change order as part of a big one, and I appreciate you taking that into consideration. From my perspective, it's now's the time to do it. And yeah, any other questions for Joel in this one? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Yeah, we don't have pictures for all.
That's not all.
No.
It's preparing live stream.
Yes, we've been checking it, it is live.
Okay.
I'm unsure as to why Zoom is choosing to check.
Gotcha. Okay, got it.
Oh, I was checking that too. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the Smale geothermal. Is that your next one?
Sir, it is. I think this is my last action item, and I'm certainly happy to talk and give you all updates on everything else. And I do want to go through a couple more, but this one is my last action item.
Okay.
So again, this is a project we brought to you all in October of 2023. I needed more information. Asked me to spend $120,000 cleaning 4 wells. I got to know more about that before I start doing that at a clip every single year. So we went back and talked to everybody that we knew, everybody that's been involved with this project, and up the engineer even yesterday, to find out how this should be handled and how we should be maintaining this system. So what we found is these 4 wells, and the reason that we have to clean them like this and on a certain interval is because in the bottom strata of this 60-foot deep well, even though groundwater is, moving all the time, it settles all these material metals like iron.
Right.
The bottom 15 feet of even that liquid state that is in our soil, right? After 4 or 5 years, you get a concentration of that iron in the bottom of those wells that blinds off the holes. You're sucking always water through holes in the bottom of a pipe, essentially. That is what a well is. You have a screen essentially, and you're pulling water through that. If the holes in that screen get smaller, it causes your pump to work harder, sucking harder to get the same amount of water through, which burns your pumps up. That is why you're replacing a 20 and a 50 horsepower pump to get that back to 100%. So all that being said, this is necessary to clean these wells. The reason it is this much is because I don't know that they've been done in the interval they need to be done. From what we've been told and what we found, and I'm not 100% sure that this is the case, but it's pretty evident that these need to be cleaned about once every 5 years. We're going to put them on a cycle to where we're going to clean them all right now to put us back to 0 and where they should be. Brand new pumps, and Andy has cleaned, as you guys already approved, the new heat exchanger plates and all that is back in order. So the system is as it was when it was put in 11 years ago after this. I know.
But how about a filter?
Exactly right. So I talked to the engineer that designed this yesterday. There's 2 things with filters. One, there is a pre-filter on this right now that gets rid of about 40% of the gross trash that's inside of this thing. The interval of cleaning is more important to keep your pumps because that allows the water to flow through there without building up on the thing. So I feel like we're going to clean these one time, and then my team over the next year is going to monitor the pressure across all of these points to see how much buildup we get in that. That will help us secure an actual maintenance schedule so that when you go to clean these pumps, you're only doing one of them a year. You would know that cost, and we're going to keep them on a cycle so you're not constantly trying to rehabilitate a system back from the point of failure to good. You're just constantly maintaining that. So I don't know if I answered your question, Mrs. Castellini, but
Is there opportunity for additional filters, I think is.
we're going to,
Would there be a better filter system?
we're going to explore that over the next year. Yes, ma'am. I don't know the answer to that. The only thing that comes to mind after doing 20 such kind of systems for different constituents is putting a tank in after you pump the water. If in the configuration you have now, you're always going to be sucking water from down in the ground, and that system is open, as they call it, because it's just groundwater. It's not a contained tank. Really, to get the settlement that you need to get that fine silt particle out, you have to settle after you pump. So what you need to do essentially is put another big tank in. Don't know the size, don't know if it's viable. It's in Smale Park, I understand that. But to do this, if that even makes sense, then you would settle that amount of water out. Maybe it's 20,000 gallons and pull from the top, the clean part that's had time to settle. And then that's how you are further filtrating that. And then you're sucking the stuff off of the bottom with a vacuum truck to clean that sludge out.
So Joe, where we stand today
Yes.
is that we either have to do this to clean, let's assume, or you tell me this is the case. This is the best price that you can get to do this work,
Yes.
and this is what you're proposing we do.
Yes, sir.
If we don't do this, our only other options are continuing to replace pumps more frequently or to pull the whole system out and put a new system. Is that correct?
Which may not even be viable yet at this point. We are still even exploring what alternatives we would even do to do that, and which is at a astronomical millions of dollars of cost.
And this is a legacy project that you did not install, so we're not going to hold that against you. But are there any other questions about the need for this? May I have a motion then?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you all. All right, I don't know how much more you want me to run my mouth, so I'll let Jason tell me to shut up, but I had.
Is there anything you specifically want to bring to attention in your report? Your report always, we have all the information that we need here.
Apologies that it was so long this time, but after a Christmas break, there was so many projects we had to at least give an update on. There was a lot going on for sure, so I wanted to.
And I'm more than willing to read them because it's great information, great information.
Pointing out a couple things.
Yep.
As Jason presented and as Molly's looking at right now, that plan of work, we tried to mimic that in how I present projects to you for the next year. So Jason had 27 or 28 projects that we're actively working on right now. For this month, why this is so long is I gave you where planning and design is on those projects right now. In subsequent months, we will only give you the projects that we've made significant strides on that we feel like is worth your time of reading. But for this month, I wanted to at least make that known that we're going to try to follow that same format of projects and updating you every single month consistently instead of haphazardly giving you stuff like we have in the past. So hopefully that tries to align with consistency and makes it easier for you all to understand where we are on things. Beyond that, the second part of the report is the active maintenance stuff that we're always talking about and always doing. So if you look at priority maintenance projects and emerging repair projects down on page 5 of my report, that just shows the things that we're actively working on that are the bigger maintenance projects, sanitary sewer, French Park culvert, those kind of things that you need to be aware of and that we're going to be asking you all to approve money on in the next couple months. Those are the two main parts of this report as we've kind of revised it for this point. If you have any feedback on that, I'm certainly willing to listen and willing to refine
Everybody's treehouse.
everybody's treehouse.
Have you got a number on what's that gonna cost?
No, ma'am, not yet. Our structural engineers are working through the analysis of that right now to tell us what we need to do to revamp that. And we hopefully will have a report for that next month. We should be able to share with you how that's going to go, but we're right behind that. We've already been talking to contractors about rebuilding that. We're going to try to get that back open, reset before it gets busy in the spring.
Yeah.
We don't know the cost of what that's going to be to replace yet.
Gotcha.
I highlighted a few things on my list just to give you quick updates on major projects. Lidl, as you know, everything is moving forward. We're about ready to start on the 4th Street change order work. Chris and I are going through lighting locations on 4th Street to make sure we're in conjunction with the DOTE. All of that stuff is going well. We anticipate Bruce will be starting on that this week. So the cold stopped them from Monday of this week, but that's where they are on that. We are also working through bids for the comfort station. Chris and Andrew have put together a pretty good comprehensive scope for Megan to go through. Again, we're going to do that several different disciplines, including the roof, the facade, ADA compliance. I think just adding a rail on both sides of the comfort station will allow that to be wheelchair accessible, which it currently is not, without ripping out a bunch of pavement. So we're studying those codes as well to make sure we're bringing that before you all in the right manner. That's Lidl Park. DNR, I was over there yesterday. There's some growing pains with the cold weather. We had a leak in the ceiling that's already rectified, but things that I'd rather catch now while they're under warranty than a year from now when they're not. So I'm happy for those little things that are going, but for the most part, move-in is going well. We're refinishing the terrazzo as of yesterday, and I think that was the last punch list item that had to be done. So the majority of Ludlow, other than the garage you just approved, is going swimmingly and people have a new home.
Just as a reminder, we're doing a ribbon cutting for that on February 16th, which will be the day after our next board meeting on a Friday. So we've got the mayor committed to it so far, so hopefully his schedule stays available, but we're really excited about that.
And have we set a date yet for Lidl?
We have not,
Okay.
because that one will have more to do with what the weather's like and what the forecast looks like. Because what we want to do first is turn on the water fountain.
Gotcha.
So
Great.
Easter.
there you go.
There you go.
Joel, we had a successful bid back for French House, right? That was the piece I wanted to update them on.
Yeah, I've got two, but
Okay.
that was one of them. French House is next. And at the time I wrote this report, we hadn't reviewed bids yet and didn't know that those were going to be viable. Since the last week, we have received a proposal. It was for $214,830 to do all of that work. You all have already approved $225,000. We're letting you know and requesting that we're allowed to use that full 225. This is a weird project with a whole lot of little pieces and flashing and fixing wood stuff. So it's likely that they'll find a little bit. I'd like to keep the additional $10,270 in tow, just in case we have something without going back for a.
So do we need to approve?
No, sir.
Okay, we're all done.
Informational.
Thank you.
Just letting you know you're spending, we got good prices and it was under what you approved. French House is rolling. The culvert is already fixed. I included pictures of that in the packet for you all to review.
Yep.
I hope that's a major improvement. It certainly looks like a major improvement to me. So hopefully that's good for generations to come. Last one is very much the same thing. We've been working towards getting pavement numbers for Washington Park. You saw in the last report, we whittled down our expectations for that pavement report to fit what we thought we still had in budget. Edlita came in with a quote of $53,240 for that first package. So we are going to move forward with that. You all have already approved that money. That leaves us about $95,000 that we didn't spend out of the original $250 that you guys
Hang on.
set forth. We will, as you know, we have that second package of things coming forth. Fence is going to be involved, south irrigation is going to be under question, and additional pavement improvements and enhancements to make Washington Park even better than it is. So we're going ahead with the pavement stuff and we're working towards the next round of stuff. So we're ready to go and ready to bid some more things when we get new funding in 2025.
Perfect.
Commissioners, I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Do you sleep at night?
Yes,
No.
yes, sir. I got 2 weeks off over Christmas where I didn't think about this. So on top of all that, it's not just me. It's 50 people feeding this and making it work even
Well,
while.
the information that you're providing is
Terrific.
excellent.
Outstanding.
Thank you all. I appreciate
Thank you.
I love
Okay.
this. Are you gonna issue this?
Correct. So, yep. So you had the spreadsheet version, which is the dummy version that I produced for the approved, but now I sent it off to Rocky's team and Emily on our graphic design team and Kelly helped with it. And they gave it a scrub to make it in a presentable fashion. And we're going to get this on the website. And then we're also going to have it available for individuals that stop by or people that come to commissioner meetings.
And every council person.
That's exactly where I was going.
Exactly.
Please, yeah, please distribute
We're going to
this.
spread it far and wide. Here's the 3-year forecast and what we're up to.
Yep. Perfect. We'll turn the floor to you, Chief.
So I'll be quick.
Mr. Director.
So the Shape of Nature is the current Crone show. It kicks off on January 27th through April 21st. It's an interactive show celebrating natural patterns surrounding us. We're partnering with the folks that brought us Prismatica a couple years ago, and it's just going to be an awesome show. The holiday show ended up just a week or so ago, brought in 593,000, which is about 60,000 more than ever before. So we're just continuing to see records occur continually. Great job by Mark House and his team. You might have seen we're feeding the elephants. And so we are actually partnering with the Cincinnati Zoo and Crone Conservatory, and we're feeding elephants ficus and woody plants that we're growing at Crone. And so it's just really cool. Tia Brooks initiated this partnership with the zoo to provide these leftover plant materials through our Browse program. It gives us a useful place for plant waste and helps the zoo providing them with plant material that can be hard to produce. It also presents a great storytelling opportunity, which we did through our social media and got great response. Local news station picked it up or is planning to do a story as well. So just a great partnership. Even more before the roar. So we partnered this year with the Bengal Gym Tailgating event, who also partners with Cincinnati Music Accelerator. And we had a family-friendly tailgating that was right next to the Bengal Gym Tailgating, which is also family-friendly enough. A little too crowded. I didn't get into that one too much, but we had a great partnership. We had vendors there. And we had beer sales from us. We made about $19,000 through the tailgating program. So it's just a great partnership.
That much beer?
It was about 9,000 in beer and about 10,000 in rental
Okay.
site rentals through the partnership with Bengal Gym. So we had Skyline Chili down there. We had Donato's Pizza. We had music a couple times. We had like 4 or 5 times. We had musical performances. It was a lot of fun. I walked down there with my dog for at least 3 or 4 of the events. One of the events I even did a 4-hour shift selling beer.
Yeah.
So I was down there, doing that. Admittedly, it was in the warmer months, but it was just a really great partnership. And it activates that space in the edge of Smale that people were using anyways. But we activated it and we were able to make $19,000 out of that.
Do we get volunteer opportunities? Like Susie and I could cover a bar shift and serve up stuff.
Like a celebrity bar.
You could do that. If you're interested, I can get you a sketch.
And Jason, I'll just mention to you, that's great use of park property. It's great that we're bringing people in. That's perfect.
Yep. So awesome. Explore.
On the Esplanade, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Castellini Esplanade, rocking and rolling as it's intended to do.
So nice.
I mean, well, and it's a little bit, it comes from me walking at halftime of a game last year through the Castellini Esplanade with my dog and seeing that there were big former 12 packs of empty beer cans that were sitting there. And I was like, wait a second, we sell beer. People are bringing beer here. We should be the ones that are activating this space, right? And then Bingo Gym came to us because they had outgrown their space. And it just was a perfect collaboration. Again, congratulations to the CEV team that helped us promote it through our award-winning social media and through Lou and his team for activating it. Just great.
The fan of the year there?
Yeah.
Did he come?
Yeah, Tony's always there. Yeah.
Explore nature, holiday programming's over, but there's still lots to do. We've got the primitive survival skills for adults, California Woods, where you can learn to make a fire or shelter. Maple sugaring at Caldwood Nature Preserve, The Secret Life of Stars at Burnett Woods. And then we're also getting ready for summer camp registration that's going to open next month. Let's see.
Wait, stop a minute. Maple sugar and thyme. Talk about that a bit.
So I'm not the ideal person to talk about that, but it is.
Anyway.
Well, I'm my job too, so I'm going to try. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody here from Explore Nature. Crystal can maybe help me out if I get into troubled waters. But I've learned a lot about it. So we have several spots throughout our nature preserves where we tap trees and get sap out of them. What I was surprised to learn when they let me try some sap is that it's not very sweet at all. It is just slightly sweet water, effectively. But at California Woods, we actually have programming where we turn that into
To boil it.
correct, right? And where we work it down till you get it to a point where it actually starts to become really sweet and something you want to have. I don't have the exact date. I think it's in March, but Waffles in the Woods is an annual great California Woods CPAC event that happens. I went to it last year. Really cool. Marty's Waffles comes out, hot chocolate. Jonathan from our team is there running the maple machine and taking people on nature hikes. So it's just a really cool educational piece that we're doing every year to help dummies like me start to learn.
Number of kids that participate? Do you have any idea?
I do not, but we can get you that.
I think there's a lot of adults that are doing this too. I know out at California, there was a lot of adults. Yeah.
I love Marty's.
Yeah.
So a couple quick final things. Ohio Parks and Recreation Association Conference is coming up February 4th through 7th, and we'll be taking the team up there where we're getting 2 awards. And so we'll be presenting them and adding them to our shelf when we get back. I'll tell you more about them after we get them and we'll do kind of a full presentation. The ribbon cutting, as I said, for the DNR headquarters on Ludlow is February 16th at 10:30 a.m. And then lastly, February 21st at 6:30, we're doing a public engagement session about the Doris Day Dog Park and some of the improvements we're going to do there. We got $57,000 grant from the foundation a couple months back. Our team has looked at both with operations on Jenny's team and then planning design. What do we need there? What do we need to do? We've got a couple ideas, but as you know, we had some folks, I think it was November. We had 3 or 4 folks come out from that area that wanted to be involved. Again, I joke about being a dummy a lot, but I was like, let's have an event and we'll go out there. And they're like, we don't want to do on site. We just want to do on Teams. It's easier for us all. So we're going to have a Teams or Zoom public engagement session here on February 21st at 6:30 to get some input about what folks want to do and what some of our ideas are for that. And that concludes my director's comments.
Questions for Jason? Not open it up for commissioner discussion and comments. Whoever has anything.
All I have to say is I'm just jazzed about this year and what's to come. I mean, what we say, 10 months, 11 months in.
Yeah.
And it's just been so exciting to see the growth and development, work Jason's doing, and the team's been doing. I mean, you all are really. Yeah. Let's say it again.
I could not hear you.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
so sorry. I'm talking to my mouth.
My husband does the same thing, covers her.
No, I'm just saying how excited I am for this year to come. Just what's been happening, what Jason and the team have been doing. Like I say, even just, man, I'm a graphic designer, so this is like, yes, sell it. And I mean, say we're here, we got your back, we're to support as much as possible. And I'm just, again, I'm excited for 2024.
Super. Just a few updates, to bring you up to date on CRC real quickly. Just as I mentioned earlier, we did a tour of the new Oakley Rec Center, a new $8 million facility over there. It's now under roof and they're moving quickly with that. They think they'll have it open in August. We have some opportunities for landscaping and trees there. Lifeguards, they're well ahead of last year.
Good news.
In hiring lifeguards, and it was an intense, they purposely have been doing recruitment throughout the year. So they're well ahead and we're pretty pumped about opportunities for staffing the pool. Finance Committee at CRC, we had a bang up year in golf. Golf has taken off like crazy. CRC courses are really busting at the seams and they're just blowing out their budgets and doing a lot of work. And because of that, we're looking at ways of spending CRC money. It's an enterprise fund, so they generate a lot of cash. We're going to be looking at ways to upgrade the facilities in golf to make sure that they continue to be competitive and continue to bring in people. Parks, Jason mentioned, we've interviewed some CFO candidates. We've got a couple more today. We've got some great, I'm really excited about the group that has come in and the resumes that Jason and his team has pulled out. So we've got some good opportunities there, I believe. We'll make sure everybody gets an opportunity when we get down to two probably, but we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on those.
Great.
We're hoping this week to narrow it down for second interviews. And perhaps what we can do is even on the second interviews, let's go ahead and distribute those resumes to these guys, just so they can see them, who we're bringing in for second interviews. Investment Committee is going to be meeting next in early February. I can't remember the date, but we've got US Bank coming in to talk about.
It's February 6th, and I know because I will be leaving the OPRA conference bright and early to be back in time for that.
I don't, well, we can talk offline. I don't want you to have to, okay. So February 6th, we're meeting as an investment committee and we've got US Bank coming in to present at that point in time, looking at results. We're over 25 million back. Market's done some good things for us. So we've got the money available. That's all the updates I have.
Excellent.
Thank you all.
And our next meeting is
February 15th.
February 15th. Oh, that's right.
I'm so glad.
Wait,
Thank you.
February 15th. So the next meeting is February 15th at 9 a.m. as always. The March meeting, which I believe is like March 18th or 19th. But I wanted to at least propose for discussion and we can make the decision at the next meeting, moving that meeting to 1 p.m. So if everybody could look at their calendars. One of our commissioners will be out in Arizona, getting our baseball team ready to go with running through the drills, I'm sure, and the calisthenics. And so if we did a 1 p.m. meeting, that would make it a lot easier for.
A lot to me, mean a lot to me.
March.
Third Thursday, so 21st. Yeah, March 21st. So we go from the 15th, which is the earliest we can possibly have it, to March 21st, which has to be towards the end of when we can possibly have it. I think the 23rd is the latest.
Is 1 p.m. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Let's just go ahead and we'll set that.
Oh, great.
1 p.m. on March 15th, 21st.
Excellent.
Super. Hearing no other business to come before us, I'm going to adjourn our meeting. Thank you all very much.
Okay, now that we're offline, I have a question.
We're not offline.
Oh.